Oh man. So guess where I'm at, Jason.
I don't know.
So we took a little detour. I'm actually over at Dakota's place.
Yep.
Yeah. So we're gonna do some testing and some hopefully some just videos and things. Hopefully, because like for me it was like staying at home, doing my job from my room. So I was like, if I have to stay at home or somewhere and do my job, like I could pretty much do my job anywhere. So Dakota was like, "Hey, dude, you want to come hang out?" I'm like, "Let's do it, man. Let's do it." So
Let's see.
he came and drove and picked me up.
You couldn't take the bike?
No, I couldn't take a bike. I suggested I do, like a train or a bus. He's like, "No, dude, we'll come pick you up." So the total distance from where he is at in Michigan to where I'm at in Champaign is what, 4.5 hours one way.
It was like 4.5 hours.
So this dude drove 4.5 hours, came and picked me up, and we drove 4.5 hours back to his place. So now we're kicking at his crib.
That wasn't too bad. It was a rainy day, so I would have been sitting inside or sitting in the car.
Yeah. So pretty crazy. Oh, we just lost Jason. He must be I wonder if I need to give him another invite to the stuff. Let's see. Boop, boop, boop.
Went from 4 down to 3 down to 2.
Yeah, we keep losing numbers. Okay, all right. Jason looks like he's back. Maybe he's coming in. All right. So let's see what's going on, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We're kind of waiting around to kind of build the audience. We're just 2 minutes in. We usually do the start about 5 minutes in, just to give people a chance to link up and catch up before we start rolling here. Jason just kind of looks like he's trying to connect, but it's not. His video is not working. So interesting, but. Anyways, I hope everybody's doing well. Once we get Jason back on, we can start the 10 of 10. Dakota. So like I was just talking. So I'm actually at Dakota's house. We're ready to get something going on. We got some video ideas. We got hopefully some testing and stuff going on.
Sure.
Start collaborating on the car side of things because it looks like we're going to be racing here pretty soon. I'm going to kick Jason off. Kick from the studio, and then hopefully Jason will come back because I think he rejoined, but his stuff's not working. So we'll have to see if we can get it going on. Ryan, what's going on? Tony, what's happening? Lee Caldwell, hola amigos. Nico, what's going on, man? Nico has been a true trooper. He's been watching a lot of these shows. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for watching and being a part of the TLR experience here. Uh-oh. Nancy Fend. Yes, I did. I almost forgot, actually. I ran back and grabbed it. So
Like one more sweep and you remember to
yeah, I did. I go, hey, let me do a final sweep, and then I was like, oh shoot, I almost forgot the short course drag car. So I did grab that, picked it up, and we're good to go. So I have that with us. And I think Jason is now coming back. All right. There he is. What's going on, man?
Just trying to stay connected here on the internet.
So did you...
between Wi-Fi and LTE.
You got 5G yet?
Only some places.
All right. So let's start off. We're about almost 5 minutes in, so we're going to start off with what we normally do here at the TLR show. I have the 10 of 10 questions. We asked all our guests the same questions, and this time we're going to trek through the questions so that Jason actually answers all the questions before we go back and revisit and talk and maybe argue about some of his shady choices here. So let's see. So Jason, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So very easy. Number one, what is the best thing about RC racing?
I don't know. I guess it's just meeting people that are of like um, mindset and that like to race, and that they have a unique love for these cars. I mean, that's really probably what it's all about. I think the first time I saw a track and I went out there, I think that's what kind of struck me right away was that people, wow, there was like a bunch of people that actually liked, um, you know, liked what I did as well. So I think that's what's kind of neat about it, as I just kind of adjust to the studio.
In the perfect
But
angle.
yeah, I think that's what's good about it is you're meeting people that are really interested in something that you're also passionate about.
Hmm. Very good. I like. You know what? Of all the guests we're gonna have, you're gonna have some of the best answers, I think. All right. Number two, best era of RC, old school or new school?
Well, I think that's probably twofold because it's like um, it depends who you're rewarding. You know, as far as your own personal racing, that would be for me in the '90s. But for watching, it's definitely been probably past 2000, and you know, I mean, there's so many different eras now. I mean, you got to say early 2000s. That's a thing. Early 2000s is a thing. Um, then there's the mid, uh, so there's the zeros, the tens, and the 20s, right? And they've all been kind of unique in a way, kind of getting out of the 90s into the 2000s. For me personally, my racing was in the 90s. It was great. I've been watching a lot of these old DVDs I have lately, kind of getting caught up for a project I'm working on, and so it's nice to revisit those, and you kind of get an idea of what was good about that age. But all these races that we've been to, obviously, me and you've been to a ton of them together, and then before that, uh, the era it's definitely special also. So kind of the rise of 8 scale has been a big thing.
Mm.
That didn't really exist in the 90s, and being able to watch these great 8 scale battles with everybody, uh, from about 2008, 2007 on is when I've been watching them. And I know, I mean, a lot of my buddies raced it. I raced it in 1998. I think I ran the nationals with 8 scale, and I had no clue what I was doing. But yeah, I
Was
like.
that the first ever nationals race?
No, I want to say that they probably had them maybe 94. Um, there was two issues of car action. There's one I believe with Cliff Lett's car and Jack Johnson's car, and I think those were from the early '90s. So it's been around
wow.
a while. Yeah,
A long time.
yeah. The first time I raced it was '98, but I think that golden era in the '90s is special. And then you get to a lot of really hardcore touring car battles in the early 2000s. There was some good gas truck stuff in there. Then we got into kind of the next generation of 8 scale racing. Then that kind of took off. And then 10 scale kind of came back. And now we're just in this weird multi surface 10 scale. Um, it's kind of like off road and on road and mixed together. So they're all kind of unique, but from a racer, the 90s, from a spectator, today's pretty great. I mean, there's some great stuff today. I mean, we just did that Nitro Challenge. Dakota did so well out there. And it's always fun to watch the latest fast guys doing their thing when the track is in the condition that it's supposed to be in.
Yeah, the speed has increased, hasn't it, over the years? So you're getting to see a kind of a different level of driving.
Yeah, the consistency of the speed, I guess you could say. They just, it's just all comes from the traction. So, if you have all this traction and grip available, you can just keep pushing the car harder and harder and harder, and you're changing the power that the car has to kind of fill that need. So you just keep stepping everything up until you can't drive it, and then you just drop it down a little bit.
We're at five fives and 2 wheels soon.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably already there.
I mean, is that what we just do? Is just keep putting faster motors in as the car handles a little bit more? We find ways to allow for more speed.
Yeah.
Just more motor. Next thing you know, next year we'll go to 5.0s.
Well, there was a period of time where we were taking power out because we didn't have traction, and the drivability wasn't quite as good. So, and then you can see it over time that we're kind of going the other way now. Guys are really motoring up and just running as much as they can, and then sort of driving in the limits of the power that they have. The 4-wheel drive cars are crazy. I mean, when you see, I mean, the other day I saw Brock shared a video from his driving at one of the carpet tracks, and I'm like, and I had spent like a couple of weeks already watching these like vintage videos from like the 90s.
You're all
it's like,
down.
Like I'm following along the 90s, this 80s 90s video, and then like Brock's video pops up, and I'm like, whoa, this is in like fast forward. And it's, I think especially on carpet, it almost seems like you can never have enough power. And then AstroTurf, it seems like the car is like stuck in the mud kind of, so you just keep upping the power until you it feels right.
Yeah, I remember in Japan Worlds, I think we were running like a 4.0 in the 4-wheel with like 30 boost and turbo, and I was just like, it felt like a 6.5. It was just kind of like normal. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And so if you have the traction, you have the drivability, and you're not traction rolling, you're going to keep adding power. So, which is kind of a neat thing, because we went through a phase where we were motoring, we were running slower power. And now with motoring up, there becomes this big difference between the speed look of modified again and stock again. Whereas for a while we were kind of like, we were getting so close in speed.
Is that a mod or stock?
Yeah.
Like, you had to ask.
Yeah, it gets embarrassing when somebody's on the driver's stand and they're like, hey man, you running stock? No, I'm running mod. Oh, okay.
It's an 8.5, okay? Leave me alone. It's like 8.5.
I like less power.
I'm dialing in my power, okay? Mm-hmm. All right, so that one's hard to. It sounds like you're leaning more towards the new era of racing. If you had to pick.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to pick, I mean, there's just so many things to consider. In terms of conditions and everything else, but the equipment today is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to say that maybe there might be a little more passion from the older days, in terms of that. It just, I don't know if it's just, it felt more like a hobby or something. It was real, guys were just so much more novice in terms of how much they knew and how much it mattered. And I think guys like overdo it today. They over research, they over, oh, I can't go race this weekend because I haven't converted my car over to run on that track. And it's like, just go, just figure it out. And, back then there wasn't that type of thing. You just went, and if your equipment didn't work good, then it didn't work good. Now it's like people that watch the weather. It's like back in the day we never watched the weather. We just went and raced, and we'd just drive to Lake Park and we would race. We would just say, I don't care what what it says or what it looks like. We're just going to go down there and see what happens. Now everybody tries to outsmart everything, and it causes a little bit of people aren't really they're not there. They're just, it causes them to tap out. They're just like, they can find a reason or another why not to do it. And it's like, that's not how we used to do it. We used to just go. We would just bring the car, we would have it ready, and we would just go. And there wasn't so much over analyzing of, are we going to race and how is it going to be? And do I have the latest setup? And so we have a lot of information today, which is good, but sometimes people use it as a cop-out not to go and race.
Yeah, I definitely miss that, even back from just, when I started, the mid to late 2000s and stuff. You just go drive, like there was no, like, you didn't, I don't know, at least for me, like, you didn't mess with the setup as much. It was just, you go drive, like, you can manage your car a little bit more. And now it's just all just making sure everything is perfect.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it. And I think that's kind of missing a little bit. And it's also, I think, because the cars are very dependent on having that traction. If you have the car so far catered to one direction, if the track is the opposite, you're going to be struggling. And so I think the vehicles were probably more neutral in the old days. Like, if it was high traction, if it was low traction, like, you kind of had this balance. You had this between car where you could throw it out there and you just adjust it on the fly. Whereas now you need to kind of know what you're doing and kind of know a little bit ahead of time. And I know that's the thing we struggle with in Florida, is we have so many different conditions that I think people are afraid to go to these different tracks because they get so dialed into one particular track that they're afraid to go to that other one because everything might not be the same. Whereas to me, I think, if you're doing it every weekend, to me, you should just be able to make the adjustment, make the switch, and go and run. But I think it's one of those things, it can be used as an excuse. So there's more people tapping out, I think, in this generation because they're overthinking it, and they don't. It's just easier to skip and then go back to the place where you're comfortable.
I think people were back in the day also, they weren't afraid to take L's. They weren't afraid to lose. Now I feel like sometimes when you're the fast local guy, you don't club race because you might lose and it might not be so cool. It might not like be your thing because you don't want to lose. You're doing so well. You're the fast guy. Everybody kind of, then you start to tip on the other side where you're the guy people are starting to chase. If you start losing a bunch of races at your club, local track, people might not think or have that kind of high esteem of you. So it's easier to say, hey, I would club race, but I'm busy, or, it looks like it's raining. I don't plan on racing. So they look for excuses so they don't actually have to go, and they maybe take an L.
Yeah, you don't want to get beat.
I don't want to say it and say the P word, but you know what I mean? It's like kind of soft these days, people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you gotta, you really can't be afraid to lose. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that's hard to learn. It's always a struggle, even in my racing, because once you start to win, you only want to win. And then it becomes unacceptable to do it any other way. And when you've won a lot, like Dakota and this and that, and you're not really, in his situation, it's not like he's trying to defend his own track all the time so much. You go to these other tracks. Mm-hmm. But when you're a, if you're a home track hero, you got to protect your home ground all the time. And
that's stressful. That's not stressful.
But you know what? It's also part of the fun, because you really, if you get to that point where you're climbing the ladder to be the top guy, you really need to take on that challenge of trying to defend it all the time.
Yeah.
And the toughest thing is in anything is to accept that there are times when you're going to lose, and you have to accept some of those even when you don't want to. You have to accept as a way to, learn for the next time. And to me, like, I always knew in my heyday, if I lost, next weekend was going to be great. Like I knew right away, like, I'm like, all right, now, next weekend is going to be all different, because there is a motivation that comes from losing that helps that next time. You're a little bit sharper, you're a little bit better, and it does help.
All right. So we'll revisit this question, or talk about the different areas in RC. I really want to get into some of the different areas because you've been around for so many of it, and it's always great to hear some of your perspectives. But let's move on to number 3, best current driver in the world.
I think so. Are we including on road or just?
Yeah, everything. Just most talented driver out there, right?
The guy that can pick up a radio and drive anything has to be Bruno.
Yeah.
He's tough to beat all around right now if you're going to include on road. If you're not going to include on road racing, then you have to look at, what Mayfield done the last couple of years. You got to look at Ty Tessman and Dakota, and that's where, if you're just going to do off road, I think those are the guys that kind of start to shine a little bit. But if you're going to include on road, you have to put Bruno in there, because he's definitely been dangerous.
It always is, man. That guy, every time I see him on the track, he's definitely one of those dudes that's got it.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, we did that interview with him at the Worlds, and we're like, we don't really know anything about you, like, and I thought people were kind of the same way. And honestly, I think sometimes it's easier to compete against people that you know a little bit more than you don't. I always kind of thought one of Masami's advantages was he didn't do a lot of these races, and he would come to the Worlds, and people were always like, this is Masami, and I'm not supposed to beat this guy. This guy's supposed to be untouchable. And there was an advantage to that for him, because he was, he had this like bar set very high, and people would, Kinwald had that going for a while as well, where he would show up, and
the entourage.
Yeah, he had a big entourage.
Is he the biggest, you think, in RC? The biggest?
I don't know, because the difference with him is he still did all of his own work. So he more had like car set down guys and like turn marshal guys and bag carry guys, and it wasn't it didn't have anything to do with his equipment. It wasn't like I have his engine guy, chassis guy. Like when Masami would show up, there was times he had his car guy, his battery guy, his motor guy, his translator, and he was like a 5-person team just for Masami. And it was like, hey, there was a little bit of pressure to do pretty well when you have a 5-person team. You can't be messing around in the C main with Kinwald were his friends, and they helped him, and they were his support structure kind of. And if there was any questionable calls or questionable issues, they could kind of help him. It was like they were like in his corner. But he did all of his own work. A lot of people don't do, that have this entourage. They have work, like, Davide Angaro. He has people that help him, but they're working on the equipment.
Right.
But Kimmel had a big support team.
But none of them helped him with his cars. It's just helping him.
No, he would stay up all night and work on his own stuff. And so it was just like hangout guys support structure,
Hangout guys support.
It wasn't like I mean, when I hung out with him, he didn't need the help on that stuff. It was
No.
just like just hang out with me and set my car out and put my body on the way I tell you to put it on, and marshal for me if you can.
Lower my shocks a quarter turn.
Yeah, don't mess me up out there.
All right. So this leads us into, who do you think is the best driver of all time?
Well, yeah, we've been talking about that a little bit,
Yep.
and stuff that I've been doing, and I always talk about Mark Pavidis being my top driver.
Really?
Yeah, because and I say this, I guess, for a couple reasons. Because one, I think it's not the mainstream answer. I guess the mainstream answer is most people just say Masami over and done, and which is popular to say, and nobody's wrong.
Yeah, no one's wrong.
Because he has the most amount of world championships. But what I say about Mark is, there was, in the era that was the most popular in 10 scale off-road, he won when that was the most popular. He was successful. He won in it. Then when he raced touring car, it was the biggest and the most popular. He won in that too. Then we raced 8 scale. It was the biggest thing, and he won in that also. So I was like, here's a guy that he even raced on-road nitro cars, 200 millimeter. He ran that, and he won a World Cup with that thing. So in terms of just handing him the radio and the cars and the equipment, getting it going and winning a race, I don't know if there was a better guy for that. But Kinwall was obviously the man in 10 scale buggy off road. That was his thing. He won 8 of 10 Roar Nationals. He won 2 worlds in that class. But in touring car, he was good, but he wasn't dominant. He did well, but it wasn't like he did in 2-wheel mod. He did a little bit of 8 scale. He actually won a Roar National in 8 scale, but it was kind of like a goofy race, kind of. He kind of won. Some other guys had some issues, but I mean, that's how it goes. But that wasn't really his thing either. He ran gas truck. He was okay with gas truck. He wasn't amazing. But 2-wheel mod was his thing. He dominated it. And then that summer of 97, he won everything. And he's got 30 Roar titles. But I still think Mark was the more talented racer. I think Brian was probably the more dedicated guy, and especially to that one class. But and then you got Masami, just won and all this stuff. But there was also some advantages for him. I mean, there was a time period where the batteries weren't. You just didn't take a battery off the shelf and go run the on-road worlds and win it. You had to have the good stuff that wasn't available.
Yeah.
And it's not like everybody got that stuff, and he was one of the ones that could get it. And when now everybody knows if you're practicing a day earlier than anybody else, but there were races he went to a month ahead of time. He was way ahead of the game. It was like, he's like, hey, I need some.
He a month ahead of a race?
Yeah.
What? Who does that?
Masami.
A month.
But he was ahead of the game. He knew the basics. It was tires and run time. That was him. He's like, this is the 90s. This is the 80s. It's tires, and you got to have track time, laps. And he put those two together, and he won more than anybody doing that. And so, yeah, there's no wrong answer. I mean, he could be easily number one, but and then I put Ryan, and Jared 3, 4, and 5.
Wow.
That's my top 5. And then I have on the outside I have like a list of like 40 or 50 names that I made.
Dang.
Nice.
So and every time I'm watching these videos online, I'm like, oh man, I forgot about this guy, and I got to put him on the list somewhere. And then, obviously we got Dakota on there, we got Jared Tebow on there, we got all these guys in there, and you just got to know. It's like, all right, well, where does this guy fit in? The good thing for Dakota and Spencer, and these guys are young. They got so many races you can win and get in there. But so I feel like I got Kinwald as six. Um, and it's hard because I'm a Kinwald guy, but I think both Ryans and Jared have surpassed what he did. And you got to think that, I mean, they've been doing this forever already. Like, the first World's Cavalier went to is 2003. Mayfield's was 2005. And they got a long run in this already, and they've racked up an insane amount of wins. These guys have won hundreds of races.
It doesn't seem like they're slowing down at any time either.
No, that's great news for all of them and all the guys that are racing with them. That it's something you can hold on to.
Yeah, it seems like when we talked about Pavitas, even Kinwald and Francis, it's like they did RCs professionally for a while, but they had to come up with like, okay, now it's time to get a real job. They weren't able to the model wasn't made yet.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have guys that can, be at their age, at their racing now, like Mayfield. They're only 33. It's relatively young, but they're still at the top of the game, and it doesn't look like it's going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, like you watch the race with Mayfield and Dakota from Nitro Challenge, which is one of the races we got in this year. Phenomenal race. They both look at the top of their game, and don't appear to be slowing down, which is good for them. And
there's just more and more coming in. I mean, just younger kids kind of growing into it, and I mean Spencer kind of came into it a few years ago, and it's just there's just more and more people that can win a race now. Went from pretty much those three to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 guys now that can. Not a surprise if they go to race and win.
Well, I remember when you and Ty had the race at LCRC. It was at 2012, and you guys were either like first and second in both classes, or you won one and he won the other. I can't really remember, but you two were kind of dominating that race in the mains. And I remember everyone was like, oh, these other guys are done. Like the Ryans, it's over. Jared, it's over. Dakota and Ty, they're going to win everything now. These guys are so young, and this was just the start of it. And people started talking about that, and I think it kind of lit a fire on these other guys a little bit, and they're like, man, I'm gonna have to take my game up. These people are talking smack about us here, and we're gonna have to take it up a notch. And they did, and they improved their programs. It's like, hey, I can't run a product that isn't quite good enough. And now you have to top out your package all the way through on the equipment, and then maximize your race. And so they kind of came back, and they're winning races. A couple nationals went to those guys, and it you could see it got really they had to take it up a notch, but it was still there for them, which was nice to see for everybody. That and it made the whole thing tighten up a little bit, but they're still there. And then I think Dakota, he had to take it up a notch too. And then you had to say, all right, well, man, those guys came back a little bit, so now I got to kind of like tighten up my program a little bit here and get back in the game. And then all of a sudden you're running for the win again, and that's how it's been going since 2012.
Yeah, it's been tough. I mean, like you said, someone raises the game a little bit, and then we got to catch up, and then someone else raises it, and it's just kind of a never-ending program. And just keep working harder. And I think now it's at the point, as far as like being prepared and preparation and all that. Like everyone has good stuff, and pretty maxed out, and it's just kind of coming out with the new products, and just as technology progresses, just keeping and improving things.
Well, the driver confidence is what I see that makes a big difference too. Is when you start winning, now all of a sudden that next race you're starting off with that feeling you left with at the last race, and you're feeling like you got to protect something, like we talked about earlier. You're the local fast guy, you're coming back to protect something. Yep. And that's the feeling you have at a high level, I think, is you come in and you're like, you know what, I'm running hot here. Like Dakota got second at the Worlds, and you're just hauling the mail out there, and you came back, and the next couple races, it's like you just picked up right where you left off at the Worlds, and you're just hitting homers, right? You're just knocking it out of the park, and the other guy's like, whoa, let me get caught up here. Let me get caught up, but then another guy will get hot. Yep. Somebody else will get hot, and all of a sudden, the other guys are like, whoa, what's going on here? And I got to get caught up again. And so that confidence is big. Even, just as important as the equipment is the confidence. And I know if you talk to Jared Tebow, he'll tell you that's his biggest thing, is just being confident in his driving, his equipment. And that's taken him to a lot of wins, I think.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on to I always try to make this go fast, but it never ends up really getting through it quickly. But Jason, what is the #1 track in the world to you? You've been to many tracks. You've seen all the different levels, what RC has to offer. What is the best track to you?
So we're talking about the track itself, or the facility?
Just the track, the layout, the dirt, the presentation. What do you think has been the one for you?
There's a ton of them.
Yeah.
There's so many good ones. My favorite tracks tend to be the outdoor tracks, just because I think I just like the larger size. I like the bigger driver stand. I feel like you get the opportunity to stretch your legs on the equipment a little bit more. But you can't rule out the tracks that, like the OCRCs and these kind of places that just, that's like they're always kind of the same. Like they don't really ever. There's really no peaks and valleys. It's like you don't go one day and just say, everything was tore up and junk and garbage. And they're one of the very top ones. And I actually have a list on my phone. I made a list of tracks too. So I have that. My favorite tracks are, I like the old Lake Park. I don't really like the new one so much with the new low driver stand, but the old one that they had from the 90s, that was probably one of the best. I always like going to Coral Springs down in Florida, Mills Pond. I love those tracks. I've never been to the track in. Thomas went with us a couple of years to South Carolina and Myrtle Beach, the outdoor track there. But I want to run there pretty bad.
Fall Brawl?
Yeah.
Badlands.
Yeah. So the Badlands looks like that's my kind of track.
Dude, that totally is, man.
That's
Jason, you're gonna make a 8-scale return, and that's gonna be that race next year.
Yeah, I can compete for the B or C main.
Yeah, that's an awesome track. I did go there 2 times, and it's a unique 8-scale track. That obviously it's RC Supercross Badlands. I think what's the official full name of that place? Is like super
Badlands
RC Supercross Motor park or something like that. It's kind of a weird name, But yeah, and the jumps are like, I think on the average more motocross style, where it's jump focused, lots of rhythm. You know, the grip's awesome during the day. Uh, you know, traction comes up and it just gets very, very awesome to drive. It's like, yeah, you would absolutely love it because there's still the tire game because it's outdoors and the sun, humidity, weather plays a part. Um, but it's also like you can run ellipses sometimes, and like it's just
Oh, nice.
awesome. Yeah, it's a fantastic track, man. You would love it.
The other track I forgot, in Vasa, Finland, the track that was there for the Worlds.
Yeah.
That's, to me, the best Worlds I've ever been to was that one and the one we did in Slovakia. Those were the two best Worlds we've done. I think if the track conditions in Slovakia were better, that would be the best. That would be the best race.
Yeah.
That would be the best
Hands
race
down,
I've
I
ever
think.
been to.
Like, how
Yeah,
much
hands
more
down.
percentage of grip would you say it would have needed just to be like 10%? Are we close? What did you think?
Around there. To me, there was it just dimensionally. I thought that the track was a little too like long this way.
Mhm.
I thought like the dimensionally the track was a little strange, and just the surface needed a little bit for today's racing. A touch more grip would have been nice, and the jump shapes could have been a little bit better.
Yeah, it would have been
but-
it would have been good for rear motor. Like back rear motor days, the two would have been good, but it was kind of backwards. I think for two wheel, just how we've been going, kind of caught a lot of us off guard. Had to put a lot of work in to try to prepare.
If that track was just tweaked a little, and some things, I think that would be the best, the best race we've ever been to. The Worlds in Finland was phenomenal. That track, there's a lot of people that say hands down that's the best track they've driven on.
Wow.
So those two are very high on the list for me.
You know what I liked about the Slovakia race? That was kind of a surprise that I wasn't expecting. The food was really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I was like, dude, the food, like, it's cheap, it's good, the coffee's awesome. Like, this is great.
Yeah, even at the track.
That little track coffee thing where you put your coin in there, dude, that thing was great.
Yeah, you guys were like doing a side bet whether or not I was gonna like live there, find somebody, get married and live there, move there forever. Like, why would I do that? Why would I do that?
Oh, you know what I brought out for you guys before I forget?
Halloween candy.
Oh, nice.
Did you have one of these, Dakota?
Dang. I know.
Dude, what is that?
This was the jacket after the pink ones. You know the pink ones, the pink,
black and the pink.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was around 93, 94, but this was like the next generation.
Wow. That's pretty cool.
So I brought this out for you guys.
I love the pink one. Not so much of the same love for the brown one.
You don't want the brown?
The pink one was so awesome for that time period. I thought that RC jacket was sick.
Hold on.
What's this? Whoa.
Patch on the front.
Yeah. Did we sell a lot of those? Probably not, huh?
Dude, in those days, I think you sold a ton of those things.
I never saw that jacket.
That was the one I was given when I raced for Team Losi.
The 3 months that you ran? Because Todd, the funny part is that Todd, we talked to Todd, did the interview. He said that he ran Team Associate for a couple months. I was like,
yeah, it wasn't long.
Yeah, I was like, what? And then I remember
that.
Jason also running team, a brand that we don't really associate Jason with. He's always been a lifer kind of AE guy. And then there was a period where he had like a rebellious period for a short period of time, and you ran Losi. Not a lot of people know that.
Yeah. And Yeah, I had a lot of success with it too. Everyone was trying to push that 4-wheel on me, the double X4, and they're just like, "Oh, this is the greatest thing you're ever gonna get," and I'm just like, I don't really care about this car. Like, I was fine with the 2-wheel and the truck. Like, the 2-wheel and the truck was great, and the 4-wheel was just. And that was a Kinwald days too, so he was like overcomplicating the setups, and it's got aluminum savers on every plastic outdrive, and he just had he was overcomplicating that thing so much, and but that was his style, and it's like you either copied the whole Kinwald setup, or you just went more with the stock setup, and I was more of the stock setup kind of guy, and um, but yeah, that was a cool jacket. People wanted those jackets.
Really?
That pink one, the pink one was huge.
Yeah, that was massive.
Yeah, because it was right in the age of you had to have fluorescent colors. Fluorescent yellow, pink, and orange, and that was a great jacket. But the brown.
The next era.
Dude, I've never seen that jacket. It must have like came in at the time where I left RC, because I never remember the brown jacket at all.
I'll bring it to you at the next race. You can,
I can give it a try it on.
Rock it with pride.
Okay, so the next question, number 6, leads to more about the event. What is the best event?
In the US?
Just worldwide, I guess.
Oh, going back a step, the race I went to in Sweden for the Euros was amazing. That was a great track and facility, and A-Main Hobbies, that's another great one, Silver Dollar. But the best event, I think, the event that I really enjoyed this year that we got in was the race, our indoor national race in St. Charles. But I thought everybody was very upbeat and happy, and they wanted to be there. Even Dakota, 4 or 5 events in through at the beginning of the year, he was doing well, and I liked the vibe at that race this year, and so I was really happy with that, the vibe there this year at that event. And the Roar Nationals for 8 scales, I was cool, and the Reedy race is good. I'm not as big of a Reedy race guy as a lot of people are, because I don't have to have that format. Like a lot of people love that format, and it doesn't really do a lot for me. Like, I would rather see all those guys qualify and run triple mains than all those races, because I feel like it's just the same 5 guys trying to figure out a way from the back of the pack to the front of the pack, so they don't break. That's basically the goal. And I ran the race as a racer, and the best I ever did is I got 7th or 8th one year, and I thought I was just like killing it. I'm just like, man, I'm getting 2nds and 3rds, and I won a race, and I'm winning races, and I'm like, man, I got to be in this thing. And I'm like, I'm still in 8th, and it's a hard race, but
yeah,
I would rather see the qualifiers in the mains, just because I kind of enjoy that side of it. But it is a refreshing break, and the race has a great, it has a good vibe to it. So it's definitely one of the better races. The Chili Bowl was cool this year. I did that.
You're getting into it.
Even though I got the Chili Bowl virus when I was there.
Dude, I honestly think he had the coronavirus there.
Maybe.
I'm thinking, like, when I do the math, I'm like, dude, I remember Jason being and Allison being mega sick at that race, and then came back, and you had that hacky cough for like a month, and then I was like, dude, this guy's got something going on. Like, it's not just a normal cold, you know what I mean? Like, so I'm thinking to myself, like, you probably already had this thing, man. I'm serious.
That would be great.
Yeah. I'm serious. And like it makes sense. Like January, then I probably had it too. I'm like, dude, I don't know, but yeah, I remember that period. You were like kind of messed up sick for a bit.
It was a tough one, but as far as that's what you said. Favorite event. I always love watching the Roar Nationals 8 scale main event. I think that's always a great race. The 2-wheel modified at the Roar Nationals I say is 40 deep. There's the 40 best guys in 2-wheel mod in the U.S. and probably the hardest race I think of the year for those guys from that standpoint. So I'm trying to think of the other. We love that turf nats we go to. We always pass that thing.
Dude, yeah, Dakota would have a good time there.
Yeah.
That's a lot of fun, man.
And then we got the monster truck races.
I've only
drag racing now.
Man.
Drag racing. We got the monster truck RC races. Those are great. Thomas did the Monster and Mega Tour in Maryland. That was good.
Yeah, that was interesting, man. A whole different breed of dudes. Whole different breed. But it's so cool to see like how passionate these monster truck guys are about their trucks, man. Like that whole segment, the whole all the trucks, man. Those guys have like 7, 8, 10 trucks. I'm like, what? You know what I mean? Like I have I have like maybe 2 2-wheels, maybe a 4-wheel. You know what I mean? Like I have 3 cars. These guys have like over 10. You know?
Yeah, I ran 11 classes.
Wow.
How many
classes?
How many did you win?
Like 3 or 4, I think. There was people coming up to me talking, and I'm like, hey, if you're not doing anything, work on this truck for me. Like change the tire. Like, it's like I needed the entourage to help get all these vehicles.
You need the BK entourage, just the helping buddies all over, man. Like
get this out.
Yeah, you definitely need that with monster trucks. Okay, so this is an easy one. You're probably the king of regulating this next question. White wheels or yellow wheels?
Oh man.
So yeah, I don't have to even like get into that. I think everybody knows you're a huge white wheels fan. You could let us know. I remember Scotty Ernst was like, yeah, Jason, he would tell you how many victories White Wheels has over Yellow Wheels, how many nationals, how many world titles. Like he would tell you. I'm like, funny thing is, he does know.
He's got a list. He's got a list.
I got a list.
Got a list.
Well, people start talking smack about the yellow wheels, and you got to bust out the data and just be like,
you can't argue facts, right?
Yeah, I'm like,
That's
they're
true.
undefeated. We're undefeated since 2013 in the world's events.
The world's count.
We're undefeated.
This is only
fully
worlds.
invested.
This
fully
is only
invested.
worlds. Yeah.
My team, White Wheels team, undefeated.
I mean, we can break it down right now. You go back to 2013. You got Stephen Hartson. You got Jared Tebow. Then you go
the last time Yellow Wheels won? Cavalieri?
Cavalieri in 2011.
The double wins in Vasa, Finland. Man.
He won despite running Yellow Wheels. He was just that good.
They were actually White Wheels dyed yellow, right?
There on the real list. There's also black wheels, pink wheels, courtesy of Masami.
Orange wheels.
Yeah, but that's not a win, though.
Wait, pink wheels won?
Mm-hmm.
What race is this?
Masami.
Oh my! When did he win with pink wheels? What year was that?
I don't know. Probably like 89.
Multiple?
Well, the other thing is there's wheel dots.
Yeah,
that doesn't. They run black wheels with a orange wheel dot or something like that. But
yeah, that doesn't count. That's like faking your wheel colors.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think, I all kidding aside, I wish there was more wheel colors.
If you could introduce a new wheel color, what would it be?
I don't know, red.
Right.
I don't know.
Red.
Like, I think there should be more. I think it's boring that we just have white and yellow, honestly. Like, that's the part I think that we're kind of missing in this whole thing, is that being able to individualize the vehicles is gone because you're too concerned about the undefeated streak of white wheels from 2013, to 2019. But no, I think if we could have some other colors, and just where people weren't afraid to do it, they're just like, hey, if you want to run green, you want to paint your wing and run green wheels, like, you're accepted.
I think fluorescent green wheels would be awesome looking, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I'm thinking in my head right now, I can see some green wheels, some black tires, and it being on a car. It look cool, look different for sure.
Yeah, it would be nice if we can introduce. I mean, they made a Kinwald kit once that had blue wheels, which that was just, I wasn't a fan of the blue wheels.
Yeah, wasn't there like a red wheel and a blue wheel?
Yeah, the Matt Francis truck had red wheels, and the Kinwald car had blue wheels.
And so it was tried. It never really took off.
There's some people out there that really hold those red wheels, like, those are, it's like eBay material, like
Close to the heart.
Yeah, and those Matt Francis red wheels are really popular. Just for people that they just cherish those things. I really wish we could see a little bit more variety.
Yeah.
In the way that people's vehicles looked. That's, to me, what it's missing, is people just being able to individualize the stuff a little bit more. Like, they're too afraid to make it too outside the box, like, now. And I think that was the part about the golden age of the 80s and 90s, where guys, they would have a wing like this big, and they would have, yellow wheels on one side and green ones on the other, and they just weren't afraid to be different. And now people are, they're just, they got to fall into one thing or another, in one category or another. And I think that's where, touring cars is even more boring. You can't tell the difference between the cars, and it would be really nice if you could individualize it. I mean, when we first started running touring car, that's how it was. Is Paul had a Schumacher car. He detailed the body. He had like the exhaust bolted to the back of his body, but that's what people liked about it. That's why it got so popular. And then the more we beat it down into this racing only type of class, where you had to have a certain body, and it didn't look like anything anymore, and that's where we always get into trouble.
Do you think that's going to happen with like right now? I feel like drag racing, like the prep drag stuff, is kind of like has that realism, but I feel like once we start really racing these things, and like it's going to change, and we're going to have one-off custom things, and like it's going to be like a really super modified type of class. So like,
yeah, but it also depends on who gets into it. If it's still user generated fun stuff, I think it'll last a little longer. But if the teams decide to get into it, then it'll kind of ruin it. So like the scale off-road trucks and all those type of things, they have a million different configurations of those things, and they're still popular, I think, because it's not beat down into competition so hard. It's still about what it looks like and what's cool to them. And as long as drag racing stays like that, it'll be fine. But if the cars become $2,000 and everybody has to use the same body to be fast, then it won't be popular anymore.
Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't happen, because I like seeing the energy, and I like seeing like how many new people it's captured, and I hope it kind of helps the industry grow some and actually be able to pull in more people to the RC hobby. It'd be really nice, and I feel like that it has that opportunity.
Yeah, it's nice. We were talking about it earlier. I mean, it's so easy. You don't need a lot of you know, you don't really need a loop. You just need like a starting gate and the ending thing, and then just a car. I mean, you could go do it in the street. You don't have to build a track or put in 10 hours to build a layout or anything like that. You just go around the street wherever you want. And actually, I saw online somewhere, there was like an entry fee, like $20-$30 entry fee, and whoever wins takes all.
Our boy cool. Russ Bryant won one of those the other day.
Didn't he get hated on then, or something happened?
It was after he won after that.
Okay.
But yeah, he won like $300 and something
that's cool.
One day, and the guy that won in Vegas won like $3,000 something. And I'm not a big fan of the money on the line.
It can get dangerous.
I think it gets really dangerous because people, they get so tied up into the money part of it. I'm okay with just doing it for fun. Like I just like we went out with AJ a week ago. We made a video, and so it's just me, Paul, AJ, and so I'm running my RTR car. He's got his car he's been playing with, and it was fun just to like try to take him down with my RTR car. Like and
how close were you?
Well, we took him down several times.
I'll have to text him later.
Paul was not letting him forget about it either.
Good. I'm glad he is.
He's like, you just got beat by an RTR car out of the box.
No.
He likes it. We kind of, what was it, a year and a half or a year ago, I tried to get AJ to do a little dirt oval. He was a little hesitant. We got him running some dirt oval. He liked that enough to get his own car, and the drag racing thing. His dad already does that, which helps. And then he got the RC one, and he likes that. And it's just neat to see people trying some of these different things and also enjoying it.
Yeah, it's honestly really good to see just new faces in the RC, just a little more excitement. So it's nice. All right, so moving on to number 8. Never gets fast. Here, carpet or dirt?
I'm a dirt guy.
Yeah, for sure. I already knew that. And then number 9, treads or slicks?
Treads.
Treads all the way.
Yeah.
And the last question, Longhorn or Outback?
I'm the Longhorn guy.
Yeah.
This is stacking the deck now.
Of all my guys, I knew Jason would be a true Longhorn fan right there, because that's
the
all.
The last 3 questions were a setup just for me.
I don't know how many times we've been the Longhorn versus Outback. How many times do you think?
It's got to be like 10-1.
10-1, at least 10-1.
It's funny. We were driving back, and he's like, "Man, I got sewed up." He's like, "Well, I'm gonna be up 2 now after tonight."
So we have a tally because on the last show I revealed I just want to beat Dakota at something. So the Longhorn crew is winning, and we're up 2 on Dakota's Outback. So yeah. So I just gotta find more guys. So if you want to be on the show, guys, just text me and say you'll say Longhorn. I'll get you on the show. You know. Yeah, just kidding. So yeah, there we go. The 10 of 10. You've got some interesting ones. The Pavitas one was the most interesting to me. I think there was something magical about Mark. His competitiveness. Was it his? I mean, BK is probably a setup kind of tinker guy. Everybody has a different strength. I think Dakota's naturally talented speed. Mark, what was Mark's strengths in terms of
just being super diverse? You basically give him a car and a radio, and he's going to figure out a way to be really competitive, and he's going to win something. He's going to win something for you. And I think that was what stood out to me. And he's going to do it himself. So, he's going to build the car. He's going to drive it. He's going to, make the changes. And that was important to watch, in my racing time, is just to see what was possible from somebody. And, Barry Baker's another guy that was really good like that. He could drive anything, and very fun to watch. Very kind of on the edge of your seat watching him type of thing, where he was really as a good driver in all those classes. And it's just not easy to do it all the way around. It's one thing if you run one car and you're good at one thing. I'm sure it's great, but the guys that can do it all in all these classes are really pretty special, because it's just not that common.
It isn't, because I think especially in Europe or Asia, you have guys that specialize. Like they're just drivers. They have a mechanic who just works on their car. Then they have maybe a team manager who does whatever, and tries to figure out the best strategy to win. So like it's really a team thing. Whereas like there are certain individuals like a Mayfield who can go and do everything himself, and from all the wrenching, all the setup, all the tuning, and go out there and get stuff done. It's really impressive to be able to have somebody that who can understand and do everything from start to finish, and then at the end of the day get you an awesome result. I don't think that's very, very common.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about before, like, what would the results be if you just handed somebody the equipment, the car kit, and you didn't even tell them where you're going to go race, what it was, and they had to build it, they had to tune it, they had to drive it, and then see what the results would be. And I think that would be a fun race.
That'd be cool. That'd be really cool.
I talked to Mayfield about a proposal once where I was like, what if you could do an event where a guy, it's like you set the kit down, you set the equipment, the radio, the engine, and you tell them, you say, okay, the main event is going to start in 12 hours. So you got to build this car, get it running, and you got to be on the track, and the main's going to start, like the tone's going to go off at X time, and the longer it takes you to get out there, the more laps you're going to be down. So you got to get it built, you got to build it right, you got to get out there, and you got to try to finish. So, and he was just all in. Like, he's just like, I got to try this. Like, so, it's like the equipment's sitting there, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, all right, go, start building. And there's a fixed time in the main event. The horn goes off. There might be 2 cars that start. There might be 12 guys that have their stuff going, but it has to be done. You have to be out there. And I always thought that'd be kind of neat, because then you get to see actually somebody doing it. You cut out your body, throw it on the car.
We got to paint it?
Maybe.
Dang.
I mean, this is just like start to finish, like get it out there, and I think it'd be pretty funny.
Oh man, that would be an interesting.
That would be fun.
Type of race. It would have to be like, if we could scale it down to like less time and do like a pilot type of event like this, where they had to build something and go out and compete with it real quick, where some of these guys could do it in like an hour, and we could do like a little event, add an event while they're racing that we can kind of have on the side to see if they compete on the side. That'd be kind of cool, but obviously you'd have to come up with something that made sense.
Yeah, the proposal I initially started was with Scotty. We were talking about the IOCC, and I was like, I told him that we could have a builders class where it was for people, and it wasn't for the pros. It was for people that just, you signed up, and of course you had to buy this equipment. That's kind of the downer, right? But
you have to spend $1,000.
But whatever the case, but you end up with it all, So
yeah.
Say you're building 22 5.0s, and it's like boom, you're building it there. You spray the body, you get your tires mounted. You get some help. You got your electronics going in. You get it set up. You're ready to go. First practice is control practice, and then you compete in that class. And so that's where I started with it. I talked to Scotty about that, and then we're talking about the possibilities, and could it be done, and what would be the price point, and what would be getting into it. And so anyway, and then I was telling Tom Mayfield about it, and that's when he was like, I want to do that in 8 scale, and he's just like, and he's like, because it's going to be frantic. He's like, because you don't want to miss the first lap, because he's like, you don't want to go out there 4 laps down, even though the other guy might have threw his car together and it might fall apart. The second you see that guy finishing his and he's going to go and get ready to race, you're going to be freaking out, right?
The stress level goes way up.
You're
that's racing nowadays, though. Even when we go to all these 10 scale races, we're standing in line 24/7, just breaking the tires, and it's like you can't not you don't want to be behind in practices. The more you can do, like, you feel like you're not behind. Where when we do these scheduled events and there's only 2 practices, we're still totally fine because we're getting the same amount of practice. But if you're behind, it's not good.
Usually what happens at our races or any races, you're kind of frantic at the beginning. You get out there, you start getting comfortable, you look at your lap times, and you're like, oh, I'm competitive, or I have the hot lap. All right, let's go to lunch. I'm over it. Let's go to lunch.
Yep, I'm good.
And then you go to lunch and you come back and everyone's like, holy cow, the track is so much faster.
Yeah.
And like now all of a sudden your lap times are no good anymore. And you're like, I got to get back out there now. I got to show them what's going on. And then you get back out. It's like you start all over again. And you're like, all right, where am I at now after lunch? And then you find that balance point. You're like, okay, I'm back up to speed. I'm going good. And then it's like, all right, seating's about to start. You're just like, oh, man, okay. Let me go work on some more tires.
It's never ending.
Never, man. Never. But that's what makes it fun, though, right? That effort.
Yeah.
Well,
practice is the most stressful part.
Honestly. I think.
It's just that it's a competition. So that's what makes it fun, is that it does somebody else's, people will tell you about, I play racing games, or I'm like, yeah, but you can say when, it's like you can decide when you start. And in RC, somebody else decides when you start. The A-main at the Worlds, you're not picking your start time, or whatever the case may be. You're working on your car. There is an A-main warm-up, and then the clock starts. And you're like, I'm up in an hour. And there's just no changing it. Like, the clock is ticking, and you're just going, oh my God, I'm up in an hour.
Was it? So as you're waiting to code at the Worlds, man, what is it like? You're just sitting there, your cars are ready. I saw you. You're just sitting there just waiting around. And are you getting nervous as it gets closer to time to go race?
Honestly, it just sucks. You've gone to the car, 4 or 5 times. Like, everything's good to go. You're doing everything you can, and then you just sit there and wait. You try to. You just like it's not the greatest feeling. And same thing, kind of like when you're doing driver intros and stuff. Like, you're ready to go, you got your car turned on, or it's sitting right there. Like, you're ready to go, and you're just sitting there for the next 10 minutes, like just doing nothing. So it's definitely not like it's not a fun part. You're just trying to stay calm, keep your emotions in check, and it's hard. I feel like when we go up there for these races, like, we kind of get in that like race mode mindset, and we get prepared for that, and then it kind of like disrupts it almost a little bit. We're kind of sitting there waiting. Obviously helps when you have practice after to kind of get back into that mode. But it's definitely a little bit different.
The most nervous I've felt at those Worlds is when the car is on the grid and it starts to count down, and it's going beep, beep.
Is it
beep.
10 seconds down?
That's how it used to be.
Yeah, I think it's like it does 10 through 3 beeps, and then it goes silent, and then it just goes off.
Silence, and then it goes off.
Yeah.
When it goes silent, you're like ready to pass out.
Yeah. Yeah, that
you're like, oh my gosh.
You guys actually partake you guys have been a part of the worlds, so you know what it's like. For me, I've been at the worlds, but I wasn't a racer, so I didn't know that whole complex mental side. I can imagine like myself racing at the worlds, how nervous I think I would be, how like serious or weird I would get in my own head just waiting around.
Yeah, it's weird. Worlds just has a different feeling for some reason. I mean, for the most part, like you race most of these guys
All the time.
all the time. But yeah, just the worlds, it just has a different atmosphere, and it's just a lot different feeling when you're there. When you're practicing, when you're qualifying, when you're racing, it's just a lot different feeling.
I think part of it is, and I think it, it might feel more normal to the European drivers or the Asian drivers or something because they're using similar software and the race management systems are similar. So, and they're doing things more on a schedule more often. Whereas I think a lot of our races are a little looser, and we're more accustomed to sort of that loose feeling of and kind of a bracket schedule of somewhere between
Yeah.
somewhere between here and there we're going to be racing, and there's a little bit of a looseness to that. And then when you get out there, you're familiar with the management system, you're familiar with the way guys call races here, and 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 it's not as strict. You're not getting yelled at. I mean, I know at the Worlds, when I've raced, you get yelled at like by people, and it's like race referees are yelling at you, and you're just like, I'm qualifying. Like,
I'm there doing video, and I was getting yelled at. You know what I mean? I'm not even racing, and I'm getting yelled at by the officials, man. It's like, geez, like everybody's it's a tense race, like
and
there's order, there's rules, there's time, and all that matters.
And that's what I think gives it that feel. It gives it that feel that it matters a little bit more, and that's where I think it tightens up a notch. And even the Neo Buggy race was like that. It has that feeling, that restricted feeling. And I remember Mayfield telling me about how he was driving his car in the parking lot, and they were going to kick him out of the race because he was driving his car in the parking lot, and they're like, they're telling him that you're doing illegal practice.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Yeah. The guy grabs him by the shoulder and says,
"You grab Mayfield by the shoulder."
Yeah. He goes, "What are you doing? Are you doing illegal practice?" He's like, if you don't get your hand off me, we're gonna have a lot more problems.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, I would have just asked him, hey, like this is not allowed. I wouldn't have grabbed somebody and be like, hey, I need to talk to you. You're having illegal practice. Like, geez.
That place was almost more strict than Worlds. That program was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of fun. I mean, I don't think you'll meet very many people that didn't like running that event. And it was cool. It was good. And when we went, Phil always treated me really well going. Going, being there, being able to, because it's tough to watch there. There's not really a good place to watch, and just trying to be able to take the race in or watch drivers. And he was always really nice at getting me a place where I could like kind of be a part of the event a little more, not just like standing 3 people back, like trying to figure out what's going on. And that makes a big difference.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, we got through the general talk and the 10 questions here, but so the racing right now with the whole situation with COVID, AMS is trying to happen. I think they kind of on the waiting pattern a little bit because they need to find out what the results are from Alabama, I think. So they don't really know yet they're having a race. What do you think about the COVID thing? Do you think we should be trying to ease up into this racing thing, or kind of be like, well, it's a little too early?
I'm kind of in favor of giving it a run, to be honest. I kind of want to see the racing start back up as soon as we think it's something to attempt. Because really, when is the right time? Do we really know what the right time is?
No, I don't think so.
So we don't really know what the right time is, and trying to pick that moment is almost impossible. So somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to start and try to get out there and start racing again, because I don't think we want people to be living without racing. I think we want to race, and I think we want to compete. Of course, we want to be as safe as possible for everybody, but there's no telling where the danger is coming from for everybody. You could be at 7-Eleven or Starbucks and have an issue, or your issue could be at some, you don't really know. I'm ready to give it a shot. We did a Super Cup race in Florida here last weekend.
How was that?
We had a great turnout.
Yeah.
And it was actually one of our better turnouts of the last year, I think. And people were very normal. I was kind of surprised, to be honest. Because I was a little bit like, people just come right up to you. You know what I mean? Like normal, and they're just like wanting to talk about racing, and you at first it feels weird because you haven't been in that position in a while, and you hear all these people telling you what to do or what not to do, but the racers there they looked so normal in terms of just wanting to get out and race, and they didn't really care, which, I mean, might not be the best thing to say, but that's what it looked like. And it just looked like people just were generally enjoying being out doing their own thing, and they didn't care.
Yeah, so we have a lot of talks about whether if AMS is going to happen or if we're going to go, if we're not going, like, does it get postponed? It just seems like this really weird period in RCs right now. Just in life in general, obviously. But, with RCs, yeah, it's hard to say because my question comes from the Roar Nationals. Is that the right move? Are they being too careful? Are we just,
I think the considerations are a little different there because
of the track.
I think because of the town they live in.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, you have to go by whatever your local rules are, right?
Right.
So whatever your state, local government and rules are, you kind of have to abide by what's going on. So obviously things being a little more open in Florida, we've had the Super Cup, and then looking toward the Nationals, Pennsylvania's been a little more locked down, and I don't think they knew exactly when that time was going to be where they could do more social interaction and large groups of people. And that's also a small town. So I think if you just dropped 200, 250 racers plus all their mechanics and entourage into that area, yeah, and then something does happen, something does go wrong that you can pinpoint back to that, it's not good for them. And I think that to me that was the more concern there, was it has to be what's good for them because they're the ones that have to live there and have a reputation locally that's keeps their business going and keeps them friends of the the town. And I think that's probably the biggest concern there. So yeah. I don't think they had a choice, to be honest. I don't think there was really. I was in favor of running the race if it was allowed in Pennsylvania and all that type of thing. I was in favor of running the race, but I think all those other factors combined, I don't think they had a choice but to either postpone it or cancel it.
Mm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what does end up happening. I mean, obviously once you start to get to fall and winter, it gets a little bit colder. So, they don't really have a date yet right now, just not knowing what the restrictions are going to be. But at a certain point, the weather is probably going to restrict that as well. So I don't know if the Nationals has ever been skipped before, but yeah, it's definitely interesting.
I don't remember there being one. 2001 would have been the only other time that maybe there was that type of issue with flying or restrictions. I know they postponed the 2001 Worlds because of 9/11 and it got moved to 2002. But I don't remember. I believe the Nationals ran that year because I think I raced it at Minreg. So I think it was a go that the Nationals that year. So I don't remember them canceling any other ones. And like you said to me, the other question is that time period becomes pretty critical, because if it starts to get cold or it's the winter, it's done. Like you're not running there.
Yeah, no. 30 degrees outside nitro is not ideal.
No. Okay, let's get into some Q&As just because I don't want the show to go on for too dang long. Jason's on the East Coast, so he's we're on the East Coast, so we're an hour up than normal. But we got a question from Matt Miller. Jason, are the DVDs of old races on YouTube? If not, are you able to upload them? What old races are you looking at? What are some of the highlight races that you're watching?
Gene Hustings sent me his DVDs many years ago that he had been putting together throughout the years. So these were, it was called Born to Race by Gene Husting. And there's like volume 1 through, I don't know, 50 or something like that.
Wow.
And what's funny is he kind of sent me like a bracket of like eras that he thought I would be interested in. And then he would like put a note on there. He's like, I think you're in this one, like. So it was kind of nice.
That's cool.
That's cool.
That's really cool.
And his son, Stephen Husting, has put them on YouTube, I believe. I don't know if everyone is on there, but I know that there's quite a few of them on there that people reference. I was watching the DVDs, but I know people do reference that there's also on YouTube. So I would just go on YouTube, look for Born to Race from Gene Hustings series, and there's a bunch of volumes, and the ones I have are from like 85, 86 up till like 2003 or 4.
Wait, you have a whole collection
that's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Like how many hours of footage do you think you have there?
I think each one can be 2 hours. Each DVD is 2 hours.
Jeez.
So, I mean, there's some 50? That, there's like some 8-scale on-road races that I'll like only watch a few minutes of. Then I'm like, all right, I'm not watching 60 minutes of this main. Like,
still to have that kind of like collection from the 80s race tapes, man. Wow.
Well, to me, I've been doing it because I'm working on a video that I'm gonna do, and I'm just trying to like get some of my information together. So I'm trying to watch some of these races just to kind of reflect on. I mean, I watched them before when I first got the DVDs, but other ones obviously I lived through, right?
Yeah.
So I have that, but then there's ones I didn't, so it's kind of fun to check those out.
All right, we've got a comment from Scott Foy, says, "What's up, Jason?" Scott saying hello. All right, so we've got Brandon Shrout. JConcepts needs more TLR upgrades, please. It's always nice to have more stuff.
Well,
all right, go ahead.
Well, that's something that people definitely, they say that to us often.
You hear it from time to time. I heard it from time to time, for sure.
And because they think that, we have all these different things for the associated cars, but not as much for the TLR. But the other thing is, though, is I think, I don't know, and this could be different today, but years ago, it wasn't as easy for the TLR guys to use our product on their cars. So I think it's difficult, and Dakota can attest to some of this too. And it wasn't like you could just throw on the JConcepts shock towers and the JConcepts battery brace or whatever, and it wasn't as accepted to do that in the old days. So it was hard for us to promote it or sell it because it wasn't being used in the market. So that was where we kind of stuck with, all right, well, we'll stick with, on the TLR, we'll stick with the body, the wing, the wheels, of course, the tires. We've gotten the turnbuckles. The original 22, we did make wing mounts and front and rear towers, and we made a battery hold down. We had a bunch of stuff for the original 22. And over the years, the other thing that happens, and it's happening with all the brands, is this turnaround of the car kits is becoming so much quicker that it's hard to redesign these parts, get them out to the market before there's another car released.
Yeah.
So that's more difficult.
Yeah, especially now. Especially if the chassis changes or something, the body no longer works and the parts don't work. So it's like, if it's
a lot of stuff that needs redone.
Yeah, and if it's every year these car companies are coming out with new kits, you don't know what's being changed and what's going to be okay for next year or the new models. So it's hard to keep up, I think. We have a comment, Nick Sasani. Concepts needs to release a Retro 5 T-body.
I mean, we bought a 5T and we were looking at it because we made some fit scale tires, and I mean, we got that thing out and we sat it on the table and we're like, this body is gigantic.
Huge.
Like, this thing is so...
To ship it, it'd be like $100.
Oh, at least probably.
Yeah.
And it's multi-parts. So kind of going back, I mean, we're probably talking about, I mean, I'd love to have one.
Yeah.
Because I just think I can see it being really neat. The issue is, I mean, we're probably talking about a $20,000 or $30,000 project to make a 5T body, and it has to be able to pay for itself. You have to be able to make it, package it, ship it, and it's got to be durable. It's just kind of a lot of caveats in there, right?
Yep.
And I'd love to see one. I think it'd be great. I mean, I've always, it's like, man, it'd be cool to have a Raptor or a 79 Ford, or an 80s Ford model would just look amazing.
Yeah, imagine a fifth scale version, man.
Oh yeah, I mean, that's what we wanted to do when we got the truck. We made the fifth scale tires, and we were like, man, it'd be nice to make one of these style bodies for this thing. But it was like, by the time you get down that path and you look at the cost and what it was going to take to do it, it's like, man, this is just at the time it's a little unreasonable for us.
Yeah.
And you have to decide like what style of body to make, and then see if it takes off, and then go from there, which I'm sure is always a pretty tough decision.
What normally happens too, because when you make anything that's branded like a Ford, Chevy, Dodge, whatever, no matter which one you come out with, it's not the one the guy wanted. So it's like you're all happy and you're proud. You made this 79 Ford body, and the guy's just like, it looks all right for Ford. He's like, I'm a Chevy guy, so I won't be getting it. I'm not going to get that one. Let me know when you get the Chevy done. You're just like, okay.
Never ending.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I would be the same way, but it's a big project.
The buy-in for a 5T setup, like to do a body for that, is just a lot higher than like a 10 scale body.
Hey, can you hold on while I get my charger?
Yeah. For sure.
I'm going dead.
Yeah. Oh man.
I learned that lesson. Right away.
Man. Jason, not well prepared. What? This will be an interesting one. I can't wait to ask this question to him. Jason, why did you switch to Losi back in the early mid 2000s? Was the XXX that much better than a V3? This will be an interesting one.
I don't even know how we're going to get this so powered up here.
Are you down what percentage, man?
We're in the 20 range.
Oh, you're good to go. We're gonna be another, I don't know, 20 minutes or so.
2 hours.
Nah, the 3 hour limit is it's kind of long, so it just ends up being too late, and me and Dakota still haven't eaten dinner yet, so that's gotta do that. So
You guys
okay,
eat
so
welcome to my life.
Longhorn, baby. Longhorn. No, I don't think that. No, dude, Michigan's on super lockdown. We can't do anything. You know, you can't go outside or do nothing there.
You're locked in your house.
Yeah,
much.
you basically get arrested if you leave the house, so can't do nothing. But so Jeff Engel has a great question, which I know the answer to, but not everybody does. Jason, why the switch to Losi back in the early mid 2000s? Was the Triple X that much better than the B3?
I mean, I think there's a couple different answers to that, I guess. One of them was the fact that it was a better car in that time period for the conditions we were racing on, running slicks a lot then. But, people think, running slicks is so new. They see slicks today and they're like, oh man, where's the treaded tires? I'm like, the first time I saw slicks run was 1993. I saw someone run slicks on the front.
Was that weird?
Actually,
back in the day to see that?
Yeah, but not really. You were just like, you were into it. I was into it. I was like, do we have to run slicks? That's it. We'll do whatever it takes. But yeah, but 99, 2000, 2001, the car was tough to beat. The Triple X, the conditions were really in that car's favor at the big races. And the B3 was a little behind at that point. And so that was a good reason to do it. And then, I moved back to Florida here at the same time. And it was a more, I guess you could say, like, it was more lucrative to run the Losi stuff. And the other thing that was nice was I got to be part of their design team for a little while on Losi when they were transitioning in the company. And I got to help Gil Losi Jr. work on the Triple X touring car a little bit. They needed somebody to help for a summer, and it worked out well because I was kind of working as an employee and a racer at the same time, because I went out there and I worked on projects. I was living in Florida, but I flew back to California to work with them on some projects.
Wow.
So, which was great because it was, the Gil Losi Jr. Experience where he had been there, done that, made everything. And, we were needed to make a car for the Touring Car Worlds in 2000 for Yatabe Arena. And they had made a prototype that they kind of, he did the junior thing and he just made something completely different. And they needed to kind of reel in the design a little bit for the actual race and kind of start from scratch and make a little more of a conservative vehicle car. And it was a carbon fiber machined car, Delrin A-arms. The whole entire thing was machined and built at Losi. And we raced those at the Worlds in 2000 at Yatabe Arena. And so I did that. I worked on some tire projects with Junior. I worked on the car, the Triple XS with him. I raced their cars, the off-road stuff, had a lot of success with it. But along with that change was also, I went from LRP electronics to Novak electronics, and the tire stuff running Losi tires instead of the Proline tires. And it's a lot to switch all those components at once. And I think the thing that was the most difficult for me was the electronics, which is the weirdest thing is I just loved the LRP electronics that I ran in my associated stuff. And then when I was running the Triple X and all that. I was running the Novak stuff, and I just never felt, and I've been ran Novak before the LRP days. I loved it up to the the different speed controls, but when I had to go from LRP back to Novak, I just felt like I didn't like it as much, and that was the most difficult part. The cars are great. We ran whatever tires it took to do well at the races, but that was the toughest part. But definitely the best part of the whole thing was getting to work with Junior on those projects, and then staying at Pops's house, which he would just, he let me stay there, and he's just like, yeah, just take my Cadillac to work. I'll take a hot rod. I'll take one of my hot rods. You take the Cadillac.
That's okay. Awesome. That's cool.
Okay.
So you did? What kind of caddy was it?
I don't know. It was black, and it was nice. And he's just like, just take it. I don't know which model it would have been, and it was probably brand new.
How old were you at that time?
So it was 2000. So I don't know, minus 20 years. So I'd be 23.
So you're 23 years old, driving around Pop's Losi's caddy, going to work, working at Losi.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good gig.
Sounds pretty baller, man.
It was a great gig.
Yeah.
And I mean, the experience was amazing, just being around those guys, and that atmosphere was really cool in those days, because it was pre RTR sort of, where the companies were getting into RTRs, and it was still all the cars were made here. It was a lot of things were still made in your own factory or your own building, and just a lot of cool things. And Junior doing things on machines that you're just like, you can make a pulley on a lathe, you know what I mean? Like, you can make a pulley for a touring car on a lathe, it's like, all right, and go ahead.
I was just saying, I think every time I talk to him, I think I learned something new. It's always super cool to talk to him and just kind of hear some of that knowledge from back in the day that you just don't really, it's just not really there anymore. We don't have to do things like that, and it's just kind of missing in the industry. And it's always cool to talk with him, hear what he has to say, and kind of hear some of his stories from back in the day, some of the things some of the crazy, off the wall things they do to the car that actually would end up working.
Oh yeah, a lot of driving and testing in those days. Obviously, you guys are about to go down that road, do a little driving and testing, but
yep.
I mean, that's how it was. It was a huge battle, and it was about improving the equipment all the time. And on both sides of the fence in those days, you had the Associated versus Losi war is what it was. And
it's not,
and it was everybody just up in the ante.
Yeah, it's not. It's that Losi AE war. It's not as prevalent as it is today, like it was back in the day.
No,
was
not at all.
Was it big time back in the day?
Oh, it was huge. Yeah, it was borderline fights out there. Yeah.
God. Sounds so much fun. Like the old school days sound so much fun. Like right now it's so serious. There's no parties. There's no wild things really happening. We don't hear those kind of stories. We just hear like about the good racing and stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, in many cases, it's much more about the people get along today much better than they did in those days, because you were very attached to that team you raced for, and you were just willing to lay it on the line for those companies that you raced for, and it meant a lot. Now you're learning to live with the differences in the companies and who people race for these days, and you're more interested in getting along with them personally, which I think is better for the business.
Right.
But it definitely made the atmosphere much more electric in those days, because it was just win or go home. Like it was. I mean, I remember Gil Losi Jr. and Mike Reedy like this close to each other, arguing about stuff, and it's like, but you know, they know each other and they're fine, you know, but you have those 5 or 10 minutes where it's like everything is a big deal, and you know, people would let each other have it. I mean, I remember Barry Baker yelling at me. I mean, it's just like, not that I'm sure he yells at Dakota now.
Still yelling.
Make sure I'm in line. Yeah.
Still yelling. All right, we got a question from Kyle Leonard. Jason, is there a slick tire in mind for the future?
A slick tire?
Yeah, so I've asked you this a few times before. Like,
I'm trying to still get my charger to charge.
It's not
my Jordan stuff.
It's not working?
No. Look at all my Jordan stuff here.
Dude, hey, we can only see a part of it. Like, I can only see the top of your JConcepts shirts. I see a 23 like picture frame.
Yeah, look at that.
Have you been watching the TV show?
Oh yeah, of course.
What do you think?
Of course.
Is everything that like is it like are you finding out new information about Michael?
I mean, for me, not really, because I've read a lot of things, and watched the videos over the years, so you kind of know that he's a real intense competitor, and all the he's kind of rough on his teammates at times, and so I mean, I knew all that stuff. That's stuff that people are learning now, but I mean, the people that were kind of hardcore fans kind of knew that already.
Yeah.
But no, it's good because I've seen footage I've never seen before, which is
yeah.
Weird. Like him gambling with the security guys. He's got like they're like pitching quarters against the wall for they're betting on it, and he's playing with the security guys like he's about to go out and play in the NBA finals. He's like the biggest star in the world, but like that's the most important thing at the time is winning like a $5 bet with somebody. Just
so the slick tires. Why is it so hard to make a slick out of the package?
How we doing?
We're good, man. Just charge that bad boy up.
We're gone. Hold on.
Why isn't it working?
We got major problems.
What's happening here, man? What's happening?
We're losing. All right.
So is it something with the mold, the thickness? Is it something through the process when you heat and sand the tire in? Does that change it so much that it's a better rubber? Is it why everybody decides to grind down tires versus try to make a pre-made slick that works right out of the bag?
It can be done. I think it can be done to have a slick that you don't have to sand down. But we've went through these phases over the years where first you'd sand the tires down, and that was the way to go. Then you would, then it came to the point where we made some slicks. Then it was okay to use the slicks. Then we changed tread patterns and compounds again. And then all of a sudden we were sanding tires down again. Then we made the tires with partial tread, like the octagons and stuff like that. That worked and was popular for a while until we came out with another line of tire and compound, and they were preferring to sand them down again. So one thing that I've always kind of felt like is throughout the years since 1999 that it's always been better to sand a treaded tire into a slick. It seems like it just has always been better. But the difference is I think with the treaded tire is you're starting with the tread at a certain level, and you can sand down to the carcass and basically just make a slight scuff to it, and then you're kind of good to go. The slicks themselves, the straight out slicks, you start sanding on those and you can scuff them up also. But I think what ends up happening is people take it a little bit differently. And if you sand them too much, they get too soft. And sometimes they can get too hot while you're doing it. And then there's an issue there. So it just seems like every time there's a battle between the treaded tire or the slick tire, it seems like the treaded tire always wins. And I think it's also comes down to who's the hottest driver at the time. If the hottest driver, the best guy there, is using a sanded down treaded tire, that's what everyone's going to do.
Yep.
So, and if you follow this throughout the years, we made the octagon tires, and Cavallari won one of our indoor national races with the octagons, and that was like people were like, "Oh, this is the new magic. You got to have the partially treaded tire. You just scuff it, you run it a little bit, and then you go with it." But I think over time, then Ty Tessman got to be the hot driver, and then he was sanding his tires straight down. And everyone's like, "Oh, we got to go back to sanding down treaded tires again." So then, even though we had octagons or whatever the case may be, the hot guy still wants to match whatever the fastest guy is doing at the time. Then you sand, and everyone starts sanding again. So we're in that phase right now where everyone, for the most part, is sanding their tires down and going with that setup as their preferred way to go. And I think what they're trying to do is make it less complicated, because I think if you enter the picture of, if you have a slick, you have a partial slick like an octagon, and then you have a treaded tire, now there's 3 options to choose from. So from a racer standpoint, he's just thinking, if I just sand down my treaded tires and I just go with that, now I can just eliminate a lot of choices and make it easier on myself. And I think that's where we are right now. The future, if we're going to be doing all this slick tire racing, might be a little different. It might be, it might get to where, we're going to change more than just having tread or no tread. That's the direction we haven't gone yet, is really a change in the internal carcass, the insert, and a lot of other things that hasn't been tried or ran yet. That could be the next, that might be the next generation. But so we have to deal with that.
Yeah, it's always tire is such a tricky game sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Let me move some of my tire stuff out of the way here. But it's the biggest thing to making the car go fast is the tires. And honestly, it's never been any different. As long as I've been racing, if anything, we went from running new tires all the time in the 90s to now just breaking in tires and getting comfortable ones that you like. And we actually probably use less tires now, but it's just a little bit more work to get there. But you're probably using less product these days in the tire game, but it's a little more work to get there. But then once you're there, there's really not a lot of work to it anymore. But you spend a lot of time at the beginning getting everything ready, and then you spend little time later, and you can focus more on other things. Whereas in the old days, you're just constantly mounting tires all the time, running new tires. So you're never going to be able to take that out of the game. You can't make a car work with the tires that don't work. It just doesn't. I knew that when I started racing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, you can't make it work without the right tires. It's just the bottom line.
Which is a great segue into our next question by Nancy Fenn. Jason, favorite role in RC? Driver, business owner, etc. What is your favorite role so far that you've had? You know, you're an engineer as well. You're a mentor,
I'm working on a better setup here.
dude.
Okay, go ahead.
So you're a business owner. You started obviously as a racer, and then have transitioned around the industry and has gotten into many different aspects of it. So what is your favorite aspect of, or your favorite role in RC so far?
I like
Is it product developing? Is it testing? Is it designing? Is it racing part?
I like being involved from a kind of a start to finish kind of thing, where I like being able to start with an idea of a direction or a product that you want to go with, and then following that product all the way until it's being used. So, like if it's a race product for us, it comes down to that event where you decided that you needed something, and you start working on that, and then all up until the event where you get to try it for the first time. I think that's the part that I enjoy the most, is kind of following that, that product all the way through from the start to the finish. I think that's probably the part that I like at this point, and I like watching these guys race. Uh, I like racing and driving the cars too, but I like to do well, and it's just, and to me, you know, I'll drive any RC car. I'll drive an on-road car, an off-road car, whatever car it is. I'll drive them all. But if you actually start racing and competing, I want to do well, and it's difficult to do these events where you're trying to represent, the product. You're trying to improve the product. You're trying to show drivers some appreciation for their time. Trying to show them maybe some things they can do better, and you can't race and do all that at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's easy for me to drop racing in um, in the hopes that doing the other stuff is a lot better for the company. I'm definitely way more into that side of it than trying to chase my own RC dreams out there, because I've already had my time on the track. I've already ran my worlds. I've done the best that I'm going to do, and I'm okay with that. But what I want to do is now live through the product a little more, where I can see it start and see it finish, and all the steps in between is what the stuff that I'm most interested in.
Interesting. And then, of that product, what is your favorite JConcepts product to date?
Whatever sells well.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you want to see the thing do well in racing, but then you also want to see it be commercially successful, because ultimately nobody's going to be here if it doesn't sell. If the Losi cars aren't selling, if the JConcepts stuff doesn't sell, then none of us have jobs. So that's really kind of the most important thing, is that this product is successful enough that people want to purchase it. So for me, watching something be successful as a product is really exciting, because it makes you think that it is working, and there's somebody enjoying it how you initially thought that maybe they would. So I think now some of my favorite products are the F2 body. That's, just we talk sometimes with Paul when we first did the finisher body when we went to Finland for the Worlds. I wasn't really sure about it when we got there, if I liked it. And then but over time, it's become my favorite product that we make is the finisher line of bodies, and we transitioned from the original finisher to the F2, and I think the F2 is now my favorite product that we have. When I look at it, to me, it just says a lot about us. Just looking at the product, and there's a lot of things that we did on that body that are recognizable features to us. It's not something that was really sampled so much from something else. It's really kind of something that looks like us. So when I see that body now, I just see that it has like our signature on it, and I think that that's kind of special. So the F2 body, um, I love the Dirt Webs tires because we worked on that with Kinwald. He originally cut up a tire out of pressure points, put it together, and he thought that that was just going to be so cool to have this. To him, it was all about looking cool. He's just like, when you would talk to him, he's like, "Can you imagine a truggy tire that looks like a dirt web?" Like that's for him. That's what was really neat, was visualizing what this thing would look like. So, he started with this pressure point tire, cut it all up, put it together, and then I basically redesigned it in the computer so it would kind of actually work the way he had it kind of built as a with gluing it together. There's a lot of things that really they work because he glued it together, but it doesn't really work in the real world. So we had to make some changes to make it actually work out on the tire itself, and that thing had a great run. It's probably
Amazing.
yeah, it's probably the best. If you go down the line of all the, we talk about the best products of all time or the best drivers of all time, it's probably one of the better RC tires of all time, the Dirt Webs, along with, I think of like Whole Shots, and I think of like the AKA, their 8 scale tire that Cody King won the Worlds with, the Impact, the Dirt Webs. These are all like the greatest tires of all time. Like they're, you know what I mean? Like they're in there. So I think that that's one of them. So the Dirt Webs I like. And we have the Ellipse now, which is sort of like everything that we thought was working well with that tire, and everything else that was we were doing to them at the track, we kind of incorporated into the Ellipse, and it's showing to be one of our most popular tires. Just we're doing this fun bracket style thing on Instagram where people can vote on our tires, and it's really popular in 10 scale and in 8 scale. Just people are choosing the Ellipse and 8 scale as a great tire. So kind of funny, but it's kind of interesting. So I'm really proud of that. Short course body, that high flow body was coming up the other day. It was it's almost a 10-year run. I mean, this
Wow.
next year's the 10 years of the high flow short course, and I think Thomas and I counted up one time we did a 13 or 14 Roar national titles with that body.
14.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Pretty solid.
yeah, next year's 10 years with that. We got some great other products. We got started in the drag racing thing early. I'm kind of proud of that we got in there early. We started competing with the bodies there and the tires.
That's really taken off quick too, like super quick. It seems like it's just been, especially now everyone's at home. It's something people can throw together and grab a body and some tires and just get out there and do some running.
Well, it's the other thing. It's the genius of the original short course truck. Is all these vehicles that are being built off of a short course truck. So it's like this platform just keeps coming back to serve the community over and over again, and that's what it is, and it's nice to see. So I was happy to be in that. We got some great licensed bodies for that we're really proud of. We got more that were set to release, and then the monster truck stuff has been great too. But that was something I got into, started in RC, and now that we're able to make the product to sell for something that was a passion of mine when I started has been pretty neat.
Yeah, Dakota, what is your favorite JC
Yeah,
product so far?
I really love the F2 body, especially on the two wheel. Kind of like what Jason said, it's just so distinct and distinguishable. I mean, it kind of definitely stands out. And then I really like the new 8-scale body as well. The P1, I think it looks really good. It drives really awesome. It just kind of seems to flow really well with the looks of the car. And then I'd probably say the Aqua Compound. Just because it's kind of something different, and I've really enjoyed kind of messing with it in 10 scale and 8 scale a little bit, just kind of figuring out, the saucing and track conditions and things like that. So I've had a lot of fun messing around with that home, learning a lot, and then kind of trying it at some bigger races and seeing how it does.
Yeah, man, I think mine would have to be the ellipse tires, just because it's probably one of the few tires generations that I was actually at the start of, so I got to kind of witness its progression and its change, and how it's affected some of the racing. I think it's filled in an amazing gap for JConcepts with for the indoor racing stuff. So I think it's kind of for us, it kind of it's swayed, it's shifted I think it evened the battle between all the other indoor tires that we were competing against. So it's nice to get a tire that was like, it was designed to do a certain thing, and it did that and maybe exceeded it. You know what I mean, in terms of performance. So it was really nice, because like we see it in 8 scale too, with the ellipse tires in 8 scale. Man, I think they're in an advantage. I think they're out there compared to everything else. When we get to run 8 scale ellipse tires, I think we have a pretty good advantage. So they're awesome tires. My favorite stuff right there.
I had a funny story once. I was asking somebody, I like really respected their opinion on things, and I was like, "So, what do you think your favorite product is that we have?" And they're like, "I really like your rubber bands."
Rubber bands, huh? Yeah.
So I'm like, just the regular rubber bands that say JConcepts on it, and they're like, "Yeah, those things are awesome." I was like, "Okay."
Okay. All right. So unfortunately, I think we have too many questions, or too many comments. I lost some of the comments and questions, so I can only see up to where Charlie's at. So there's definitely a limit to questions, man. Crazy. So I'm gonna have to kind of cruise back over and see what's going on here. Dakota, what is the best speed control for mod, and especially for brakes, in your opinion, looking for a strong feel?
That's tough. I think most of the speed controls on the market now are very solid. There's a lot more technology that's been coming out lately, and a lot of the speedos have been kind of updated. I know Halloween came out with their new G2 speedo recently. Much more has kind of gotten into the market, and then Tekin has their newer speedo out as well. So definitely all solid options, and yeah, I mean it's really just kind of personal opinion. Everybody has their feel that they like, and with all the settings now, generally speaking, you can kind of get it wherever you need to get it. So yeah, that's a tough one. I think they're all pretty solid, and just gotta try it out and just kind of mess with the settings a little bit and get it where you need to.
All right, we got somebody making comments about the pink jacket. Charlie Carter, pink jacket was with muscle pants. What is that?
Yeah, he's talking about like the jams. You remember those things?
No, what jams?
Yeah, they were like they were fluorescent color too, I think.
Muscle pants.
Yeah, I remember calling them the jams.
Oh, interesting. And
They
Scott
look like
Hughes. We had a guest on. I mean, actually, all of our guests have made some weird reference about Scott Hughes, about the stories about he seems to have like this, I don't know, almost like larger than life like history when he was a racer. Like there was a lot of things going on with Scott Hughes. Like, you know, like Barry Baker will say a lot about it. You know, Todd Hodge, everybody that was racing back in the day, they really mentioned like what kind of dude Scott Hughes was. And you were actually one of Scott's roommates back in the day when you guys were racing together. So you actually know quite a bit of these stories that
Yeah.
he's got.
I was there.
One of the questions was, what's the like craziest random Scott Hughes stories?
Well, not all of them are super clean.
Yeah, so,
that was we were in this problem before.
That was another thing. It's like, oh, hey, I'll have to tell you the clean version because there, you know, it's like, so there's like this like because Scott was kind of before my time in terms of race, like when I got kind of heavily involved in racing, and so, but I still knew who he was, but I obviously didn't know any of the stories.
I think, I mean, there's so many. It's just, but the two I guess that stand out to me right off the bat is the year that he won the Truck Nationals in it was in Illinois, Lake in the Hills, Illinois, I think is where it was, I believe. And so we flew into Chicago, and you know, it was him and me. We had a rental vehicle. I don't even know how we had a rental vehicle because we weren't 25, you know.
They
But
just
anyway,
had different rules back in the day.
I guess. So we had a rental car and all of our race equipment and all of our, you know, all of the tires we needed and everything we need. And so I raced one class. I raced 2-wheel drive. Scott raced 2-wheel and truck. And so what we decided to do is we were like, he's like, let's just go out every night. and so
I just put a comment, a Scott Hughes comment on the thing talking about your relay race.
Well, I mean, he got third. It's not like he never won. It's not like he won.
Third, eighth, same kind of thing. You weren't a winner, so yeah.
Yeah. So we're in Chicago, and and we're just like, yeah, we'll just go out every night in Chicago. It's not that far from here. I mean, it's really like a 40-minute drive, but it didn't matter. You know, you would just stay up all night, and that's how everybody did. You know, Kinwall would stay up all night wrenching, and if, you know, in those days we were like, you know, we're just going to go into Chicago every night. So we would never unpack the vehicle with our race equipment. It would stay in the vehicle. We would drive into Chicago, do whatever we're going to do. We went out with a couple other racers, you know, like Jim Gard and some other guys. You know, he knew somebody that was from Chicago, and, you know, so every night at this Nationals, we were in Chicago, and the RC stuff never came out of the rental car. And Scott TQ'd in one mod truck there. He beat everybody. You know, he beat the Kinwalds, the Pavitases, whoever was hot at the time. And it's not like, I want to say he probably won the first two mains too. Like, it was just like, you know, it was just like TQ, 2 and out. Like, he just walked with it. And he was just a terrific driver when on that level. And he never worked on the car. The shocks never got rebuilt. He just, you know, he'd mount new tires for the rear. Like I was talking about earlier, we would mount new tires. He mounted new tires. And he TQ'd and won the race. And it was kind of easy. It just, I remember the guy from Car Action magazine would come around and looking at his vehicle and, you know, trying to write down the setup to put it in the magazine, you know, because back then you'd take a picture, put it in the magazine. And he's asking Scott all these questions, you know, what do you got in here for shock wheel? I got it right. He's like, I don't remember. He's like, it must be like 30 or 40.
30 or 40.
Front or rear. And
or like, 40.
Yeah, so he's like, all right, you know, write that down in there. And then he's got it sitting on the bench, and he's like, okay, what do you want me to put down for camber? He's like, I don't know. Let me take a look at it. And he's looking at it on the bench, and he's like, looks like two on the right side and maybe like 11 on the left side. He's like, so 11 degrees on that side and 2 on that side. He's like, okay, yeah. And the thing was great. The truck was great, and it wasn't even close. Like he won easily. And then we had another Cactus Classic that he won, and it was just a funny story that he threw up before the A1. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Scott here. Check it out. Yellow, white is boring.
And it's just you can do so much in this by being a great driver, and what he proved that he was a great driver, what he could do with that. And the Cactus Classic was always during St. Patrick's Day, so they always had a great St. Patrick's Day party on Saturday. So we were checking that out, but then he was running the main on Sunday, so right before he won, he had to throw up. Everybody has these kind of stories. He was just, but people can, people that are good at stuff can do it in any capacity, in any situation. Stay up all night. You're just watching these Jordan documentaries, and he would play 36 holes of golf, go gambling, do whatever, and then go out the next day and score 40 points in the game. It's just like, when you got it, you got it. Sometimes it's as simple as that.
Yeah, I've only met him a few times, and it was just basically when I go back to the Northwest, because he currently works at Lunsford, and I'll stop by and talk to Kelly. And now that I kind of know a little bit more about him, I would like to go actually visit and talk to him. just to visit with him and catch up with Scott a little bit, because I didn't know his past. I just saw him at Lunsford. I knew the name, but I didn't know. Like, now I hear stories and stuff. It's just like, wow, dude, this guy. I want to hang out and get to know this guy a little bit here.
Yeah, these days he's not as squirrely as he was in those days. But when you talk to him today, he says that he was just having fun. He's like, he says what he thinks happens lots of times is people aren't having fun doing this. And he's like, I just wanted to have fun, and I wanted to race my cars, but he's like, I wanted to do everything else too. And he's like, and I think he would try it, and he still had success, and so his system was working. He had fun, and he won races, and and sometimes he just overachieved, like, for what his maybe compared to a setup maybe Kenwald had or something. He may stayed up all night and had special tires and had everything, and you got some guy with 11 degrees of camber on one side, whooping up on you.
Puking before his A1. All
Yeah.
right. Yeah, crazy, huh? Would that piss people off? Like, I would feel like, say, if somebody did that today and was able to skate away, like a guy like Spencer would be very upset that this dude's skating. Spencer's putting in all this time and all this work and all this practice and all this stuff, figuring stuff out. He's super motivated. And then you got a dude that just wakes up, runs to the track, puts in his qualifier, TQs the round. It's like, that's not supposed to happen. But
no, it's not. It's what you can do with talent at times.
Yeah.
With just raw talent, you can kind of get away with a lot, but you can't do that all the time. Like, if you have to measure, what you're putting in versus a Kinwald guy, and you say, hey, one guy ends up with 30 national titles and the other guy has 2. But who had more fun getting there? You know what I mean? It's questionable, right? Like, it's, and at the end of the day, is it the 30 titles that count, or is it the fun that you had to get there? So I definitely know, being there for all of them, we had a blast. We experienced it. We experienced it all, and we did the racing, and we raced well doing it. So, and it was almost like a double challenge, right? Like, and I think he kind of saw it like that too, where it was like, he was like, you know what? I think we could do this, and we could do this, and you know, then you could beat somebody too doing all this stuff. You know, it's like, it was like a double challenge. You know, it wasn't like, it was like just one thing wasn't enough. You had to like up the ante and say, you know, well, you can stay out all night and win. Like, that would be even better.
Yeah. That's funny.
Up in the ante.
Yeah, you say, you know what? Let's make it two races in one.
Jeez, what a guy, man.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows you what you can do, and the mental ability for people to lock in to, to a lot of these people that are really good at something, and they're doing the thing they're good at. When they get locked in to it, they can just turn out these amazing results. And it was a guy that could do that.
Crazy. All right. Rodney E. Roberts II has a question for you, Jason. At your Super Cup last weekend, were people wearing masks?
There was a couple.
So it's not like full, like back out there just doing everything like everybody would normally do. Still some masks.
Yeah, there was about 2.
Okay. 2 people, that's it.
That's what I saw.
Wow. All right, so let's moving on. Let's see. Jasmine Hernandez question: any talk with Losi about making a short course based drag car? That would be kind of interesting, huh? I don't know. I'm not part of the product development. I'm not a product manager, so I do not actually have any info on that. If Scott that's usually here, he would have had some info for you, but unfortunately, he wasn't able to make it today. All right, so
Should I answer it for him?
sure. All right, we got a question for Jason. Jason, you're slowly buying every piece of nostalgia of your youth, from original AE body molds to the Bigfoot monster truck. What's the next big score you're working on?
Well, a couple things. We sold Bigfoot to Fred, so
Yeah.
no longer have Bigfoot.
Bigfoot 4 is gone.
Bigfoot 4 is in Fred's possession as a restoration project, which is great. I kind of feel like it's in the family, so I'm more than happy that he has it. So there's probably 3 or 4 people that should have that truck, and he's definitely one of them. So that's cool. And the AE body molds was something that we didn't necessarily. I didn't go out looking for those. They kind of came looking for me, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I remember that.
And you just can't deny something like that when it comes looking for you. And just some great stuff that is, I mean, stuff's like 30 years old, and you're looking at it, and it's just nice that it's still around, and we're getting people that are happy that they can get some of these things that they've wanted for a while from the genuine Team Associated mold, and they were nice enough to have this product and hold on to it for a while. 30 years, and it's still a lot of it still. I mean, we've had to refurbish, work on things to get them to work, but but we got a passion for the vintage cars because that's where we came from too. So we feel that it's worth putting time into it and getting them out there and making it part of the lineup. And I like that stuff, and it's where my racing came from. So it's hard to say no.
All right, next question. Rob Sturgill. Dutch Brothers or Starbucks? This guy, a pretty good troll, I'd say.
You know, Thomas and I tried a Dutch Brothers
Mhm.
somewhere. Where did we do that? It was it might have been in Michigan actually. When we stayed at that hotel that had one in the same parking lot, and
Yeah.
we went back. I think we did Dutch Brothers, and we were at the track at the clubhouse for like 15 minutes, and we're like, "Hey, you want to go to Starbucks?" Okay.
The Dutch Brothers.
Gotta get the Starbucks.
Well, the Dutch Brothers to me is their coffee stuff is way too sweet, like way too sweet. But that's okay. Some people love it. All right, let's see. Jason Travis Slover asks, any plans for a B6.2 aluminum rear hub?
Yeah, I think so. You know, we got those B74 ones out.
Yep.
And looking pretty good, and I think it's doing well out in the market. So as long as we think that platform's going to be stable, I think we can make make one for the 6th generation buggy.
There you go. Questions getting answered. I like it. Looks like
we had some people asking about vintage Losi bodies too.
Oh yeah, what's up with that?
Well, it's tough. I mean, we have some that we might have generated in the early 2000s that we might be able to bring back. Like we have a Triple X, we have a Triple X NT body, we have one of those. So there's some things that we could bring back that were our own, but we don't have any of the actual Losi stuff that people are sometimes looking for to build these box art cars and stuff like that. They want the genuine Losi one because it looks like the box. Yeah. But we don't have like the access to them like we did with these couple of the associated ones. So we weren't really able to make those right now. But maybe our own versions we had from the early 2000s, we could, if there's enough interest in those items.
All right, so we got a question from Nico Listy. Jason, what are your thoughts on tire saucing, a sauce made for tires versus yellow cap liquid wrench?
I mean, I love the liquid wrench tire sauce stuff. I think it makes it so much easier. You know what you're getting, you know what you're getting into, and I think when all the racers at the race use the same sauce, I almost feel like it's just so much easier. And I would say we use a liquid wrench, 70 or 80% of the time on a lot of our equipment. I know Dakota's done a lot with the Trinity sauce too. But personally, I when I'm watching the guys race and I'm there, I always feel like a little more comfortable when we're running the liquid wrench because I feel like everyone's kind of using the same thing. Yeah. And it makes it a little more equal, and you can kind of take that part out of the equation. In general, I don't like tire saucing. I wish we didn't have to do it, or I wish it wasn't a part of racing. But until there's a great way to separate it from the racing, you're never going to be able to get rid of it on indoor racing. You don't really need it outdoors so much. I mean, there's only a handful of races we've ever successfully used it in main condition, I guess. But indoors, it's just something that's just a kind of it's just a part of the game.
Yeah.
If you don't do it, you feel like you're losing something.
I think you are losing a lot of time, to be honest.
Yeah.
Each lap. Yeah. It's probably, I would say, I don't know, 0.2 or more on the average faster when you sauce. So
yeah, and like most places have their tire sauce they use. Whatever works for that track and that the locals use seems to generally work best. But the liquid wrench is somewhere you can just go to any track and it's going to work good. It's never bad, and it's just solid. It's very predictable what it does to the tires.
Yeah.
And you just know what you're getting with it. So it's easy to get, it's easy to find. You don't have to try to order it online, and make sure you bring 6 bottles in case you're going through a lot of tires. So you can just go to the store across the street and pick some more up. So It's just easy. It's just easy and it works.
I like when I see the racers using it out of the bottle too, because it really eases your mind in terms of everyone's kind of using the same thing. And it's nice to look over at Ty and look over at Dakota, and you look over at Mayfield and Spencer, and everyone's using the same bottle. Or a lot of times these guys are so friendly, it's like, let me use your sauce, or you know what I mean? Like everyone's just using the same thing, and that makes me feel a lot better because I feel like we're taking that game away a little bit.
Yeah.
So Ronnie Chapman says, Jason, have you ever considered being a track promoter?
So that means I'd have to have a track?
I don't know, maybe promote events, maybe. Like I think that's kind of what he's trying to say. But you do your own events, like you did the Clash, which I think Nick Mulatto said is probably one of his best events because it was different or something like that. Like, yes, one of our guests, I can't remember, I'd have to look at the questions when we go over them, but they said that the JConcepts Clash was cool because it was a unique mix of being serious but having fun at the same time, which is now it seems, I think, a lot of races are too serious.
Yeah. Well, that's where we started with that event. And the whole reason we did that event is because I felt like there was such a divide in Florida between our nitro crowd and our 10 scale crowd. So 8 scale crowd and 10 scale crowd. And I felt like it would be cool to have a race where we put them all there at the same time, so everybody could see what the other racing was like. So if you were just an 8 scale guy, you got to see 10 scale. If you're just 10 scale, you got to see 8 scale. And then, in those days, we brought in Mayfield, we brought in Lee Martin, and a lot of drivers that, had never been to Lake Park before. And we had a great event. And then we moved to Coral Springs, but it was great because they got to see people race in 10 scale. You got to see a guy like a Mayfield, and obviously this is something Dakota does all the time, is you can go straight from a 2-wheel buggy where you got to be a little finesse, you drive it a little different, and then the next 3 qualifiers down the road you're running 8 scale nitro where you're more of a maniac and can do more what you want to do with the car. Crazy stuff in the air, and you got to see these guys transition or attempt it yourself, which I raced in those races, and I did the same thing. I ran 10 scale buggy and then ran nitro, and I liked the variety. That's what I like, running different stuff and showing that you can do the different disciplines, and that's what that race initially was about. And then we ran longer mains, single mains, because we were just getting in the lipos and brushless, and I think our very first race we ran a 10-minute main, and we might even ran a 15-minute main in truck. We were doing some funky stuff then.
Wow.
Yeah, this is in 2007 and 2008. We were running like 10-15-minute mains. And it actually went pretty well. And so that was the idea, was to show how far 10 scale had come with the batteries and motors. That we could run these longer races, you could do extended events, and then to run the nitro cars and 8 scale along with 10 scale to show that they could run together on the same weekend. And
interesting.
It was pretty successful. The only problem we ever had was weather, which you always are going to have outdoors some way or another. But the races always went well. I think there was only one that we didn't finish the mains. All the other ones we finished the mains. So, yeah, as far as, that's the closest we've run to, we ran our own race. We put the entry form out there. We took the entries. We got there and signed people up, and we hired a race announcer. We came up with the schedule, and that was our race that we ran as everything really. We did a lot of super cups that way too, where it was our people or people that we hired to do it. And the indoor national series works a little different, but owning a track, I've never owned a track. I had a track in my backyard when I was a kid, and I do think that I'll probably make another track eventually, but it'll be just kind of for, there's just some stuff I want to try with a track, and it's not really going to be for, I don't really think it would be for big races. It would just be more like for messing around.
Gotcha. So Travis has another question about the ellipse area. A lot of people in my area run the ellipse backwards, especially on the front. Was this design intentional or something that just kind of took off on its own?
I think anytime something's directional, like that ellipse, there's going to be people that run it both directions. So
Yeah.
we knew that when we were designing it, that it was directional and that people would run it both ways. My thought process is, for some reason, I tend to always put things on the way I feel that they should be run. It's hard for me to race with them backwards because I never intended to actually personally run them backwards. But that trend kind of got going a couple of years ago, and with the rears, guys were doing well with it and thought that was the greatest thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, all right, if they think it's better backwards, I'm all for that too.
Yeah.
But it was intentional. We knew it was directional. We knew people were going to flip them around because there's a different, it kind of takes on a different application, I guess, to the track. The way the tread and the rubber is applied when you're driving is a little different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was quite a few people who ran them backwards at Velocity RC this year for the JC race.
Yeah, and not to, for whatever reason, but it seems like there's more TLR guys that like running them backwards. I mean, I want to say Tom Rinnernick or one of those guys was one of the ones that was just like, it was magic for him. He's like, I flipped these things around, broke them in. I tend to think the biggest factors are still, do you have the right compound to begin with, tire traction and break-in, and how many runs do you have on them? To me, those are still the biggest factors, regardless of the direction. Because I think once you get those tires broken in and feathered a certain direction, then I think that the difference between the two directions starts to even out more. The more that you're works on the surface area of the tire, I think the less the direction matters.
Gotcha. All right. So John Lee says, Rick Howard, king of jams. Is that true?
I always thought it was. I thought Edwin Maturius and Paul Wynn had the best jams.
Paul had rocking jams, huh?
He had some cool blue ones. Edwin had some orange ones.
Dude, okay. All right. We got a question from Ed Barotijan. All right. Does your website have TLR caps and t-shirts? We do have caps. New t-shirts like the one that Dakota is wearing will be in a couple weeks. Yeah, so we have the TLR with the square logos in the behind it, just to give it a different look. So that t-shirt that Dakota's wearing without his custom graphics with his sponsors will be available in a couple weeks. So that is for sure coming. So Jonathan meant, so we're going to revisit this question just because I think a lot of people that, may have tuned in late don't really get to hear the answer unless they watch this long video all over. So the quick answer to this, Jonathan, meant back in the day, all the TLR guys were not really able to run anything that was not TLR. So body, accessories, wheels, wings, all those things, they were limited. So it doesn't make any kind of sense for a company to invest a lot of money and time to produce a lot of product where none of the team drivers could run. So if team drivers don't use it, they don't really sell because there's no one really kind of showing that the product is something that is race worthy. So there's Jazzy. I haven't seen Jazzy in a while, man. Good old Jazzers. So that is why JConcepts really hasn't jumped in and done a lot of stuff for the later TLR cars from TLR 22, 20, 30, 40, and 50. Just because the original car, they made a lot of stuff, but the team wasn't really able to run it. And it just doesn't make sense to make a bunch of stuff that the team drivers can't run and help endorse. Right now, the rules have changed in recent time. When did it change, Dakota?
Probably like 2 years ago was when it started to kind of. I mean, it used to be like we had to run TLR bodies for the most part, and like it was pretty strict. But yeah, last probably, man, it goes by so quick. But it's probably been like 2 or 3 years now. It kind of loosened up a little bit and allowing the drivers to kind of run some different products and stuff.
Yeah, so now that it's open, I think it makes more sense for companies to do aftermarket bodies and parts that might be a little bit different than what TLR has in terms of look or style or functionality. So I think we'll see a little bit more now. Maybe Jason has some insight on future TLR products if he wants to release some of the secrets there.
Well, I mean, I always say that we have the body, the wing, the wheels, and the tires covered, and then we've done turnbuckles over the years, and we're going to do some new turnbuckles for the 22X4, and then kind of get them back out for the 5.0. Obviously, with Dakota running now, that's been one of the things this year is getting the turnbuckles added back to the lineup on the two vehicles. So we have those in the works for both of those two new vehicles, and then we also have a P2 body for the two wheel coming. So we've had people ask for this.
Yep. Jonathan is actually one of those guys. I remember him asking me a long time ago when I was part of JC why we don't have a two-wheel body or a TLR P2 two-wheel body. And I was like, well, it's not really up to me, but I would like to see one. And then so
we're
going to have one. And the other thing we were talking about earlier, where one of the biggest factors with any accessory is that when you make them, there's a minimum amount of parts that you normally need to have in stock or commit to when you're building these kind of accessories. And if the generations of these cars is getting so short that it's hard to release, the car comes out, we don't get all these new cars before they come out. We normally have to get these cars once they're released to the market. So then you have a vehicle that comes out, if you're going to work on the accessories or the parts, and then you have to get them out into production. And if you have a really short window that they're going to be out before the next generation, then it's hard to really sell them. Mm-hmm. Because if you only have 6 to 8 months of sales time to sell something, that's really short. And then there's a new generation, and then if the new generation car comes out and you have those old parts, I mean, you might as well forget about it. They're just going to sit there for the rest of your life. So, there's things we have for the B5 that are still around, because once the B6 came out, nobody needs those B5 parts anymore. And, there's this aluminum jewelry. When it comes out, it looks great for that car that's out. But once somebody moves on, you got to find something else to do with it.
Yeah. So like on my desk at JConcepts, I had a Centro rear aluminum camber block, right? And it looked cool because it was like a nice machined piece. Unfortunately, the car didn't stay around very long. It was just excess parts just kind of hang around the shop there. And I was like, well, this thing looks cool. And it's got a cool anodizing. It's got nice trim. It's a nice little, like work of art, So mm-hmm. I just had it on my desk and just a decorative thing. But yeah, they just sit around. And that Centro, how long was that out? Like a couple months, like.
It got a short run.
It really short, and then they transitioned to B5, and all those Centro parts were basically thrown away. It just is tough when we have the cycle that's so fast, and everybody wants new and the latest and greatest. And this is another question that's going to lead me into, um, some of the downfalls sometimes of getting into everything and making everything so quickly. There was a question about, is JConcepts going to make a top on-road body? Where did it go? There we go. So are you guys going to ever make a top touring car shell? Easy,
Well,
yeah, easy one for this, right?
well, we tried twice,
Yep.
and basically by the time we got it released, there was a whole nother generation already, and I think and it would be easy to make another one, and to make another one, and to make another one, but is it really worth what you're putting into it to follow that kind of trend where the thing is becoming obsolete almost as fast as you can make it? And um, it's just not, this isn't a racing where you have a budget given to you from somebody, from a sponsorship, that you can just spend endless amounts of money just in search of the ultimate body. In order to make these products, it has to sell to pay for itself. And if these things can't stay around for a decent amount of time, then it's not worth it. And that's where we were with the touring car bodies, is if they can't make the rules or set it up so that the product can have a life span, then it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
So we made two bodies, and I thought that specifically the second version was very good. Paul raced with it quite a bit, and it was successful, and we had some great results with it. But getting that next generation, I just fear that by the time you put all the effort into it and you make another decal sheet, which everyone takes another decal sheet, and everything that goes into it, if they don't slow down that development side of what's you're allowed to have, then it's probably not worth it for us.
Makes sense.
Total sense. All right. Barry Baker has a question. What year was it when I met you? Penta Hotel, correct? Must have been 25 plus years ago.
It was either 92 or 93.
That's the first time you met?
Yeah.
Do you remember first time ever meeting Barry Baker?
Not the exact moment. He claims that he knows that I was that he was staying with Kinwald there in the hotel, and that I came in there, and that's when I met him. But I mean, to be honest, you're a little more into Kinwald. So it's like, it's kind of like meeting Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, and you're like, oh, it's Michael Jordan. You're like, well, Scottie Pippen's also there, and you're like, oh, I don't remember that. You know?
What's up, Kinwald? You need anything?
But
who's this guy?
Then, what was funny about that though, is probably by the next year, I was probably closer with Barry than I was Kinwald, because Barry came and stayed at my house and ran an on-road nationals in Florida.
Oh.
So, I mean, I remember being in high school, and he would like rebuild my whole on-road car while I was in school, and I'd come back and I'm like, what did you do to my car? And he's like, oh, I changed the whole thing. I'm like, hey, I was already running at this track. He's like, trust me, this is going to be way better. Okay.
That's funny.
So he didn't let you know. He had no permission. He took your car and changed it all.
Changed it all.
But was it better?
Yeah, let me ask you this. Was it better?
Not for me. But you know what? But he took his car and he TQ'd with it. So it was good for him.
There you go.
And that's still probably the most magical qualifier I've ever seen in my life, was when he TQ'd. Just a full commitment run, cars crashing in the chicane, and he's just going right through them. Like, it's like they're just flying up, and he's just going straight through them.
Days
No
of
problem. I
Wonders,
mean,
baby.
and that was the, if you had one good run, you could TQ. It wasn't points or IFMAR. So it was 1 4-minute run. And if it was magic, you could sit
Wow.
on the pole. Yeah.
He did that.
He did that. No problem.
Good old Barry. All right, so there's some questions about a new stadium truck. Steve Rasmussen, how about the insides on the 22X stadium truck? Well, I would love to see stadium trucks come back, but not in the form that they're in. I'm not a big fan of the mid-motor stadium trucks, you know? I watch these guys drive it. I've driven some in the past. They're just not a lot of fun to drive around. I just don't think the popularity of these things are gonna come back. Even no matter how many times we reminisce or how bad we want these trucks to come back and race, I just don't see the glory days really being there. So
What is the 22X stadium truck? Is that just sort of a...
No, I think he's just meaning the new 22T, like new model of the stadium truck, I think is actually what he means. But yeah. Okay. So next question. Dakota, you want to answer some of the 8X, the truggy stuff and the buggy stuff?
Yeah, so Truggy, obviously a few of us ran something different at Nitro Challenge. It was still, fully pre-production and everything. So no information on that yet. But hopefully, like I said, when they decide to get it announced, they will, definitely announce that, and hopefully everyone sees it.
Yeah. So Android Geek has a question. Is anybody reading the YouTube comments? I believe the Facebook and YouTube comments are coming straight to StreamYard, so we should be good. Okay. Okay. Steph Abbott has a comment to your comment. As they don't look like cars anymore, just aero jelly molds instead of cars you relate to like the older days. Yeah, that's one of the big things about touring car right now. There's a big debate on, the bodies don't look like anything that resemble a real car. They're just made for basically a performance standpoint. Hard to get into. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just think that they've ruined the class between the cars and the bodies. It's just not appealing to people getting into it anymore because of the price point, and it doesn't have that allure like it did when I got into it, which was 1996 was the first touring car I had from Yokomo. Paul got the Schumacher. I had the Yokomo because I was a Yokomo driver. And I think I was running an RX-7 body when I got my first one. And Paul, I can't remember I think he got a BMW maybe. He had a BMW on his, which was just great because these things they looked like the real cars. And that was what was making it popular.
Yeah.
And that's why all these manufacturers got into it, because it was selling.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I mean, we'd go to a parking lot race at Superior Hobbies, and you had 250 entries for a parking lot race. And they were some of the best experiences we had in those days, was running those events. Just pitting in the parking lot, people driving by on the road, and you could see the racing, and they turned a lot of new people into RC because of that. And there was just a lot of things that were right at the beginning with it, and then it's kind of gotten ruined over time with the competition and the chassis and that window of when the car is new and when it's obsolete is super narrow in touring car. And they're great to drive when you got a good one and you got that full mod power. They're amazing to run, but they were amazing in 1996 when I drove it. So it's lost something over time, and it's clearly lost some things in other areas, just besides in my eyes. I mean, they used to have their own magazine for on road and touring cars, and um, it was the industry for a short period of time.
Wow.
Like
They had their own magazines?
Well, it was like Car Action would make a whole magazine dedicated to touring car.
Wow.
And when there's a hot segment, that was so popular for them to do in the 90s and early 2000s. When there was a popular segment, they would turn it into a whole magazine. So it was like Car Action would make touring car, RC touring car by Car Action, or RC monster trucks by Car Action, or RC, there was a crawler one for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Also, just recently I saw a scale truck one, and but it had a lot of appeal in those days. HPI did a great job with it. They were able to, I think they had the RS4, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
That thing was so popular.
Yeah.
That thing was everywhere. And they would just like use the same car and change the body. And, they had like 100 different bodies, and, because there's so many different ones. But it was great. People loved it.
Mm. All right, here's another good question by Jonathan Ment. What's up, Jonathan? Hope you're doing good. Okay, so how do you see racing changing with the lack of international competition / travel? Do you feel like there's less international competition and travel in these days, as maybe compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago?
Not really. I mean, I would say that people, European racers, Asian racers would come over for Reedy races and that type of thing. And then, the U.S. drivers would go over there for Neo Buggy and a lot of the world level events. And, so I would say there was 2 or 3 events per category each year that you could kind of choose to run or not. I think that there's probably going to be a point to where what happens is people start looking at the numbers, and they say, okay, so if it costs us, if we're going to send Dakota to Europe, it's going to cost $4,000 or $5,000. Well, what can we do with $5,000 if we don't do that? Well, we could send them to like 10 races in the U.S. or whatever the number is. So it becomes a numbers thing. In the old days, they didn't look at the numbers like that. They just said, if we're going to go, we're going to go.
Mm.
And now everybody watches the numbers a little more and says, what can we do with that money that is going to give us equal value or better value? So it was like, it's it's not just all willy-nilly, like let's just throw $30,000 out the window to go run somewhere just because we feel like it. It's what are you getting for that money, and could it be used somewhere else? And that's what people, I think, are sharpening up on a little over the last couple of years is all right, well, this really puts a big dent in our yearly budget if we're going to do something like this, so we can do it a little smarter. And I think the companies are being a little bit more frugal on how to use the funds versus in the golden days. It was like, just
Private jet.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't that crazy, but it was, if you wanted to go, you went. That was it.
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, we'd like to go, but we have to go.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Interesting. All right. Well, we are almost at the 3-hour mark. We've got a minute and like 13 seconds.
What's the record?
I think it's 3 hours and like 5 or 3 hours and 10 minutes. So they're all been kind of hovering around 3 hours. The one with Todd Hodge was a little shorter because he was with his family. He had to kind of go. It was 2 hours, but everybody else is basically has been 5 minutes short of 3 hours or over. So yeah. I think this one has no problem making 3. And the thing is, I tried to move it along so it was only 2 hours, but it just naturally happens that, you know, it just goes into 3. So there you go, Barry Baker. I'll take being Scottie Pippen any day.
You know what? In his heyday, there was some definite Michael Jordan moments.
Yeah, he's been actually pretty awesome to get to know, because I obviously he is Dakota's mechanic, and I've been able to, once in a while talk with him on the phone, and it's been kind of interesting to get to know Barry Baker, the man.
What I like, what I like about Barry is he's into it.
Oh,
that's the one thing that you sometimes you see some people and you're like, are they really into this? How deep are they into this? Are they just like, is it just sort of they have a 5-hour window each day where they think about it and they like it? Or is this like, a thing where that's all they think about and it really means something, and it means something to them, which is, I think, something that a lot of people from that generation have, the Barrys, the Kinwalds, or me, or the Paul Wins and the J.R. Mitches, or whoever in that generation. It definitely means something, and that's the other thing you kind of want to carry on to other drivers is making it mean something to them on a a big basis, where it's more than just 5 hours a day or a couple hours a day. It's like becomes a life thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, nice. We'll end the evening with a nice quote from Steph Abbott. Thanks for doing this, guys. As we don't get to see and watch things like this in the UK, thank you. So,
see the little picture of his car. It looks like a cool paint job.
It's a touring car, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little blue, a little orange in there. Yeah, cool. Well, Jason, I first want to just say thank you for coming on board. It's a little bit strange for me because we usually see each other at the races, and it's been a long time. I feel like I haven't seen you in, I don't know, like half a year almost. It's just been a couple of months, just because we were so busy traveling and attending races and stuff. But now the downtime feels a lot longer. But I've always, you know, I can't thank you enough for giving me the opportunity, and giving not just me, but many people, I think, the opportunity to really shine in at what they do. I think one of your strengths that I've always felt is being able to identify like other people's strength and allowing them to really, like, I guess, come into their own, whether it's me as a media guy, an employee, or as a driver, asking you questions or asking for, how they can improve. You really work well with a lot of your guys. And I think I feel blessed that I was able to work and experience and work alongside you because of how involved you are with racing. Like you say, that Barry's, that it was easy for him because he's so into it. Like for you, he's so into it. For me, you're so into it. Like you're one of those guys that I can't believe how much time and like how much effort you put into, your business, your friends, and just RC in general. Like I don't know if there's any other companies out there, doing as much as you do for the racing side of RC. So thanks again.
Yeah, tons of appreciation to you as well, and thanks for the great comments, and obviously Dakota for everything that he's doing. We love having him on the team, and having that kind of flagship TLR guy. It's been great to work with him. Just in the short amount of time we've got.
Yeah, unfortunately.
We've actually did a lot of events.
A lot
of events.
A lot.
We packed in
3 months.
So many events in a small period, but I'm looking forward to getting. That's kind of why I was really wanting to run that Nitro, the Fuel Nationals this year, and I thought that was going to be a great track for you and other our guys. And I think I was just looking forward to going there again, and
Yeah,
so hopefully
cool
we can
place.
still do that. And looking forward to touching base with you guys again soon.
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good.
Dakota, thanks for joining me for the live Thursday. Jason, thanks for being a guest this week. We'll have to hit up Longhorn pretty soon and maybe go for a Starbucks run, huh?
Yeah. So Longhorn, Starbucks, and then we'll hit Outback for Dakota. Just
Get a little appetizer after
Just
dinner
on
or something.
Sunday. Just on Sunday.
Yeah.
Yep.
So everybody else that's watching, thank you for tuning in and checking out the show. It means a lot to us that we can connect with people, that we can keep the interest and the fire going. You know, if you have questions about products, about setups, about cars, about knowledge, you know, any one of us or most of these viewers also have a ton of knowledge as well. So I want to thank you guys for spending the time with us and being part of this show. I hope you guys all stay safe and that we'll get back to racing soon enough, man. I can't wait. So thanks again. See you guys later.
Thanks, guys. Have a good
Good
night.
night.